All right, good afternoon. Calling this meeting to order today, July 17th. We're here at City Council Chambers. I'm going to skip roll call here for a second and give a couple of people some chance to start, but let's go ahead and jump to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, public citizens' comments. We have Allison Guzman. She is representing the Rio Grande International Study Center.
Or wait until
I got
wait
it.
until she passes.
Yes, she gave it to me with the letters. Ms. Guzman, thank you for being here.
Hi,
You have the
thank
floor.
you. So really quick, I'm Allison Guzman. I'm the Justice 40 Program Manager at Risk. So what I'm doing is kind of helping federal funds reach Laredo through the Inflation Reduction Act and bipartisan infrastructure law. Laredo is growing, and we need those funds to accelerate its growth, to keep more jobs, to keep people here, right? And so this is one event that we're doing on July 30th. It's called Electrifying the Future, Seminar on Solar and Electric Trucks. And it is sort of looking at ways that private businesses can get federal funds in order to pursue greener initiatives, like electric vehicles and solar paneling on warehouse roofs. And so it's kind of talking about the different benefits you can get from that, especially tax ones that might kind of actualize faster than grants, which can take like 18 months before you actually get the money, whereas like rebates, stuff like that, has a faster turnaround time, as well as discussing the new EPA rules issued for Class 8 vehicles, models 2027 to 2032. And so there will be lunch, and this
by
is
blowing
taking
up what
place.
looks like Kai's room.
Whoever's
Was later revealed to be a
logged in,
replica,
can you
which
please
they've been
mute
working
your
on
phone?
for the past 2 months.
Oh, thank you. So it'll be on July 30th on Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. We'll have pan dulce, coffee. We'll serve lunch. Scratch is going, so that's exciting. We'll have Alvaro Pequeño from PEG Energy, Mario Palos Jr. from Palos Garza Trucking, Roberto Perez from Forza, and Gonzalo Prida from Prida Multimodal Logistics there. So big players within our community, talking about their experience, what they've encountered, sort of moving on these new trends and being able to innovate. There's only so much money left in the pot, right? And so it's kind of it's imperative that we seize these funds for our community and
Great.
Innovate. Yeah.
All right, so this is an invitation to come to this event.
Yes.
Okay.
Invitation. Come one, come all. Scan to register the QR code. The link is bit.ly/risk-electrification. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at the risk number, or my email, Allison, ALLASON, @risk.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Guzman.
All right, thank you.
All right, I'm going to go back to a quick roll call. Mónica Salinas,
Here.
Carlos Fernandez,
Here.
Jesus Olivares, J.D. Gonzalez,
Present.
Orfelio Quintanilla,
No.
Luis Hinojosa,
Not here.
Rick Laurel, I'm here, Arturo Dominguez,
Here.
Emilio Richer, not here, Jean Lindgren,
Here.
David Puig,
Here.
Jorge Cavazos,
Here.
Rodolfo Garza,
Here.
Gerardo Maldonado,
Present.
Jason Hinojosa. Great. All right, I'd like to move on to the next item, approval of the minutes. I think everybody got a copy of the minutes, via email on the board.
Motion?
Second. Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Great. Moving on to items of discussion, we have, quite a list here of items. First would be the presentation and discussion regarding the Talise Development Project and any other matters incident thereto. Mr. Earl?
Good afternoon, everybody, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, my name is David Earl with Earl and Associates. I'm the legal counsel for SE Legacy Development, the development company developing the Talise project. I'm also general counsel for the Legacy Water Supply Corporation and general counsel for the Legacy Municipal Management District. It's my pleasure to be here for you today and provide you this presentation about this project. We have a slide presentation to give you, and I'll go through that. Before I do, just commenting on the last speaker about the potential benefits of electrification and solar panels, I want to remind everybody that just recently, Webb County adopted the PACE program. And the PACE program is a state program under which the state government will actually help you fund things like solar panels, and you can get a private loan through a bank that's guaranteed by the state. And it can be up to 25% of the value of the entire property to do things like that. So if anyone is interested in that, I'd encourage y'all to also look into that as a complement to what they're talking about.
Great.
If you could bring the PowerPoint presentation up, let's see if I can, if I need to do it, I can, but if not, we can.
It's actually there on your desktop. AB was, able to download it onto your desktop and.
So we put it AB.
They saved it.
Here, let me go like this. All right, there you go. No, that's not it. Right here. That's it. That's it right there. All right, got it. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
That's all right.
So I got these fancy PR people to help us out here. Thanks. So starting at the beginning. So Talise's motto is where dreams come true, and really this
Real,
project.
hold on, one
Yes.
quick, check, IT, is there any way that they can pop up on our screen so that we can see? Sorry, before you start, don't wanna interrupt you farther in. Yeah, he's there.
You want me to share that screen on Zoom?
There,
Do y'all have it now?
no, but we can you guys see it from here?
Press 2 on your screen.
No, but I mean down there on that screen.
What is it?
On the bottom right of your screen, there's a 2. You can press that.
Oh, I'm
that's
sorry.
At the bottom.
On the TV.
On the monitor, there's a 2 button.
Oh,
I pressed it too many times, so I get one back.
Okay. Right here, okay.
it just went to, there we go. All right, everybody press
Oh.
the two right here in the bottom, on the screen. On the screen, yeah, there you go. There we go. See,
Okay.
yes, 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 thank you.
Are we good?
Yes, sir.
What do we have to push?
The 2, the number 2 on the screen.
Físicamente, con el dedo aplástale al 2, ahí está.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Don't press it 1,000 times.
So,
That too.
the Talise project is an international because it's tied between Mexico and the United States, integrated because it's integrated with multimodal capabilities of various types. It's an industrial city with quality residential, recreational, industrial, commercial, and retail uses. As you know, it's located here in central Webb County, about mile marker 20, on I-35. It comprised about 13,000 acres of land. very large development, one of the largest singly owned developments in Texas right now. It's centered at the intersection of I-35, State Highway 255 and US 83 and the UP Railroad. There's an estimated future $1.6 billion of infrastructure that'll be put in the ground on this 13,000 acres over the course of the project, and that's a 40-year build-out, to make it come into reality. There'll be over 9,000 new homes, and I know sitting here today you think 9,000 homes, my gosh, but you got to look into the future. That's over the span of the time period of the project, and over 1,200 multifamily units. There's Class A industrial space, commercial and retail development projects, and the creation of new construction jobs and thousands of permanent jobs. There'll be an addition of over $12 billion of tax base on the county's tax rolls when this project reaches its 30th year. That is the projection. It's conservative. And I'm trying to click forward on this, but
I think with the keyboard, you can do the next arrow.
there we go. Okay. So it's adding 34 million square feet of industrial. Now, you know, that's a lot of industrial. When you break that over 30 years, it's a little over 1 million square feet a year. So it puts it in perspective. The master plan of Talese has been very, very, very detailed and thought out very carefully over the last 3 years and perfected with input from the Texas Department of Transportation, the I-27 corridor committees, as well as stakeholders in the area, the city, the county. And it's broken up into 5 primary tracks. What you see here is I-35, the UP Railroad in red there. You have US 83 on the left side of the project. You have 255 coming from the Camino Colombia Bridge. And you see that green connector up at the top that's coming in. That's a new connector that TxDOT is asking for, and the Walker family's agreed to donate the land for, to connect another connection to 83 to 35 to be a relief route in the event there's ever traffic congestion or a stoppage on Highway 255. So we're working on adding that in. So that's a new 83 to 35 connector right there. You're familiar with the Gateway project. What you see there in light blue is part of the Gateway. That is part of the Gateway project, and that is part of the Gateway project. So we are neighbors with Gateway, and we speak on a regular basis. We have an agreement to cooperate on developing together. We're making our utilities available to Gateway to the extent they would like to have them for their municipal utility district. In fact, I talked to Kurt Kraus today, and we're working on access issues and other things. So what is going into this master plan? These arrows and boxes show you the different components. Starting at the top right of the screen, the lots up there on the top are a blend of, starting on the left side, this is called the Springs at Talese, and there are 5 to 10 acre residential tracts that we call ranchette tracts. They'll be amenity rich, which means there's going to be an equine center, riding stables, a roping arena, covered roping arena. There'll be a number of other facilities and amenities, clubhouses, community centers, heavy landscaping packages, public water, all with fire flow. There'll be a 50-foot hike and bike trail around the entire perimeter of the 4,800 acre tract. And as you move from left to right, you start off with the 5 to 10 acre tracts, and then it goes to 3 to 7 acre tracts. And then the tracts in green, those are actually tracts that are called an avion community. And what that means is that each of those lots has access to private taxiways. These lots are designed to where a person can build their home and their aircraft hangar on the same lot and be able to taxi like you'd pull out of your garage onto a taxiway and taxi to a 7,000-foot executive runway. We believe there's a very good market for this with the international community as well as the local community and executives that have to fly down to Laredo for business on a regular basis. So that's a 7,000-foot runway, and then in the center of that, there's a ski lake and a club that'll be part of that community center. So again, this is something like Laredo's never seen before. It is an extremely amenity-rich development. Coming back down, we have in the future a very large-scale runway. that could be used for industrial or other traffic. If that does not take off, we have an alternate plan for that, but that's currently what we're looking at doing. And that would have a direct connection to the UP rail. So we'd have a multimodal facility with rail, truck, and air all in the same park.
Anybody here know, excuse me, the length of the runway in the Laredo Airport?
It's currently about between 9,000 and 10,000 feet. The end of the runway is not all usable. It depends on if you're taking off or landing. It's got a displaced threshold. They have some room to expand it, but I don't know if they'll be able to because of the housing that's so close by as far as, complaints and things like that. But
Okay.
But it actually gives Laredo opportunity to do different things with their current airport if they wanted to. I don't know if you know the story of San Antonio. San Antonio had an airport called Stinson. That was its municipal airport. Our goal is not to compete with the Laredo airport at all. This will not be a commercial airport. There will be no commercial flights out of it whatsoever. It won't be a passenger airport at all, with the exception of private air traffic for the people who live there. It is intended to be strictly a industrial and a freight airport. What that does is it actually helps Laredo be opened up for more commercial flights, hopefully nonstop flights, or at least more airlines coming to and from Laredo to make it more accessible to the rest of the world. But that's all. We're working with the airport director on these issues and have been working with them, and they're aware of this project, and we work in tandem and cooperation with them. The center box there, you see industrial development. There's over 4,000 acres of industrial. It's comprised of the areas in the light blue and the pink or the purple color, as well as the yellow. Coming back around to the right, there's large nature lots, there are about 900 of them. That'll be surrounding a large wet recreation area with lakes and ponds running through those green areas. And then on the bottom, the half-acre estate lots, about 850 of those, called the Retreat at Talise. The center track is kind of the centerpiece. It's called the Township, and there will be, starting on the west or the left along 83, you're going to come into an industrial complex. That first phase is about to start construction. It's been designed. It's being built by Stewart Development out of Houston and Keystone Concrete, and they're putting about 1,400,000 square feet spec in the first phase. To the right of that, you see some buildings laid out. That is a 618-acre piece that's being cooperatively developed by SE Legacy and a company called ClearPath along with ARCO. ARCO is the largest industrial developer in the United States. And they have plans to go ahead and start that spec. In the center of the green area will be a town center, much like a plaza you would see in, for example, but on a newer basis, a more modern basis, but like in San Miguel de Gente, where you have a town center, fountains, park amenities, and it's surrounded by a plaza that has retail and restaurants and bars on the bottom, residential on top. There'll be a church on one side and a municipal facility or some type of administrative facility on the other, balancing the two arms of life, so to speak. There'll also be workforce housing, purchase as regular residential housing, but also rental homes, single-family rental apartments, and even a workforce village. Coming back up on the left, we have the Preserve at Talise. There'll be 900 homes there, and that will also be a very amenity-rich development. A lot of trail systems, new high school sites. There'll be 2 elementary schools and at least 1, if not 2, middle schools dedicated to the United Independent School District. So that kind of gives you an overview of what's being planned there. Again, this is a long-term plan. In addition, there's a lot of retail and commercial, which will be blended into it as well. So some things to consider. TxDOT is going to be widening I-35. That's something that Laredo needs. The ports that you govern need the widening of I-35 to continue the meaningful transport of goods today. But more importantly, tomorrow, as you expand the capacity of your bridges, there'll be even more traffic. As the port of Las Cárdenas in Mexico continues to develop and become the primary port as opposed to the port of Long Beach and the other ports in California, there's going to be more containers coming through the port of Laredo than ever before. And they'll be coming in both on rail and truck through La Gloria Highway. So it's very important that that widening happens. The Walkers are working with TxDOT to ensure that everything adjacent to their project has the right-of-way width in order to be widened by donation. TxDOT, according to them, on the state level, who we're communicating with the Director of Planning there, intends to move the UP rail from its existing position to the west of its existing position, meaning they'll have to move it on the Walker property, and the Walkers will be donating the property for that relocation. And why are they doing that? It's because basically they have to have enough to have a 400-foot right-of-way width, and they have to have two multi-directional access lanes to qualify as a federal interstate and to maintain 35 as a superhighway. And without that width and those designations, they can't do that. Originally, the airport, for example, was placed over here where the green circle is. Based on advice and consultation with TxDOT, we moved it over to the new location so it can be adjacent to the expansion of 35 and the rail that will be put in there with the proper sidings for industrial trade. That will be 11,000-foot runways in addition to the 7,000-foot executive airport. The existing infrastructure, you're all familiar with this area. I don't have to go through it. If I was making a presentation to a group somewhere else, I would. But the important things to point out here is this Callahan Road, if you keep an eye on that, because that is a 2-lane undivided gravel county road at the moment. TxDOT has a plan to make that a major east-west connector because it actually goes all the way out to the far end of the county and beyond. And so what they're looking at doing is widening these segments. These projects are already funded, and there's development authority already given. These figures on this slide are a year old. There's actually the new 24, 25, or 25 through 28 CAT and UTP, which has funded a lot of this. So we're working with TxDOT on making sure these get built. The Ports to Plain project, you're all aware of, it goes right down 83. It'll convert 83 into US 27. That UTP has been approved by TxDOT to widen it to 4 lanes divided. And we have an opportunity to help TxDOT expedite that and get the funding to the local area here in Webb County to expedite that by donating the right-of-way and having the Legacy Municipal Management District work with TxDOT as a local sponsor for that portion of the project. The LMMD has $6.9 billion of bonding capacity. The I-35 corridor that's been studied, like I said, there's the opportunity for realignment of Webb Road and the extension of the outer loop off of 83 from 35. So we can actually help expedite the outer loop being built by using this project as a catalyst and coordinate the 255 overweight truck landing point and transload points, taking advantage of the full benefit of the overweight corridor legislation that was passed by Senator Zaffarini and Richard Raymond.
So you all see Highway 255 being the connector for an outer loop?
It is already planned to be a connector. It's supposed to be connecting there, but there'll also be an offshoot coming off of 83 going to the south, according to the county's most recent plan. And I'll show you that in a moment. I've got a graphic on that.
Sorry.
So the big improvement that's happening most rapidly is the I-35, US 83, and the UP crossing reconstruction project. And that's going to be essential to making everything north of it work, so we're keeping track of that and helping give input and coordination with that, along with the city. And then the I-27 corridor, what they are working on is making this piece of I-27 from the connector at 83 and I-35 all the way to 255 and up through what we call the Pilas tractor, all the way up to that bar and gas station up on the 83 past 255. We're going to donate all the right-of-way. There's about a $29 million land donation being done by the Walker to facilitate all of these different expansions and really work on making that the showpiece of the I-27 extension to set a bar, if you will, for how the rest of the nation needs to build that Ports to Plains going to the north all the way up toward Canada. So we have our own transportation projects. This lays out what they are in numbers. The Walker Boulevard I-35 interchange, we're working at doing a new overpass there in between 255 and the intersection of 83 and 35, where that number 1 is. That will be a new interchange. That will go over and connect to the outer loop. The Webb Road and US 83 connection, the Webb Road that currently is a dirt road will be rebuilt to a substantial segment to connect 83 to 35. It's likely that the at-grade crossing of the railroad at 35 and Webb Road will be eliminated because of that overpass will allow that accessibility. The or State Highway 255 and Trust Tract interchange for overweight freight corridor, I'll show you that in a moment, and then the outer loop extension east of Webb Road. Less priority projects are these. Also the airport funding, working with the FAA and TxDOT on that. So again, the opportunities to work together with the Talese project under the Legacy Municipal Management District, the special district created on that 13,000 acres to build that project out. There's a lot of opportunities to work on funding and joint expansions on road facilities that will help Laredo and the port system. To give you an idea about this railroad relocation, this graphic kind of explains that. What you see here from the right of your screen to the left, you've got the light line there. That's the current access road, two-way access road of I-35, and then you've got 2 lanes going in the north direction, a median. Where the red line is, those are 2 lanes going in the south direction. You have another access road, and then you've got the railroad right-of-way. And then you see that white line, that's the fence line of the Walker property going to the west. So what we're looking at doing with TxDOT is there'll be over 130 acres of right-of-way dedication to provide TxDOT the ability to relocate that UP line. And that's that area that's kind of in yellow there. That would be the right-of-way dedication. And then they would close the current UP line, move it over to that right-of-way, and once they would actually, TxDOT would build the new UP, or the new line first and dedicate it to UP, and UP would give up their existing right-of-way. And why would that happen? Because that would reset the boundaries for the I-35 corridor to include that UP right-of-way section, which gives it a full 400 feet as required by federal specifications for an interstate highway, a superhighway. And that's how we're going to achieve that. So again, same kind of concept is being used without the rail in it to widen US 83. We're giving about 150 feet of right-of-way on the east side of US 83 for that expansion. That's about a $15.8 million value. These are the intersections we're planning on that township tract that are state facilities or will be considered state facilities. You've got the intersection coming off of 255, which will be an overweight drop down that'll benefit both Krause, the Trust Tract, and Talese. All 3 tracks will benefit from that drop down. And then you have coming off of 83, this Street 2, this Street 2 coming off of 83 will be a super street that'll end up in an intersection with ramps sweeping onto 35 both directions, and then the overpass going across the railroad tracks and across the top of 35.
Just so you know, I don't know how much more time you have on this, but we're at 17 minutes. We'll give you 3 more minutes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, let me just rush through this.
No, you're good.
This is really the nuts and bolts of how the city benefits from this. It's a regional, we're doing a regional economic development agreement between the city, the county, the LMD, and the Water Supply Corporation. That's already been approved by the city council in concept form, in a resolution of intent. The county, the LMD, and the Water Supply Corporation. We're meeting with the USDA and the Water Development Board next 2 weeks on that. So what does that mean? We're going to be working on a number of things. This is currently the location of the Talese project in relation to the city. What you see there in blue is the county's most recent outer loop. So it goes right from that project all the way down to the new Bridge 45. What you see in yellow is the current city limits. What you see in the light color that kind of arches around the city limits is the ETJ and the CCN, the Certificate of Convenience and Necessity for the city, where they have a monopoly to sell water. Problem is the city doesn't have any water to sell, so the city's been referring people in that area that want to develop to the Legacy Water Supply Corporation to get water commitments. There's no more water to get from the river. And so we're working with that to make sure the city can continue to grow its utility, grow its tax base, and continue to develop that property that's owned by others between the current city limits and the ETJ extension to the north. So when you look at that and what the city has planned to beef up its water system to prevent the boil notices and everything, the city, what we show here is this purple pipes in the ground here they're planning. These are all extensions to connect dead-end mains and prevent unsanitary conditions in the city's current water system, and to try to circulate the water that they have. And that gives us an opportunity to tie into that. And we've worked with the city on doing a 60-inch interconnect between the well fields, the deep Carrizo well fields we have on our property, 42 wells we're putting in, and to the north, to allow that water to come down to Laredo to eliminate the city's water shortage and allow it to continue to grow. These are the connections. We're also working with the county to get water to the colonias on 59 and other colonias that don't have water service right now. This colonia service area number 3, for example, Los Arcos and the other areas out there, we're building this pipeline that you see here, and we're tracking it on the 83 to Outer Loop right-of-way. And we're actually going to be able to get federal funding for the Water Supply Corporation to acquire that right-of-way. And when we do, we'll be able to turn the right-of-way over to use for the Outer Loop, and there'll be water and the Outer Loop together, which will bring economic development to this whole area of the city's ETJ. We're putting a future 24-inch supply main there to connect all that. The right-of-way, we're doing that. Last piece of blue is a 60-inch connector to the city's El Pico main line.
Who's paying for that?
So that's being paid for in part by the federal government and part by the state government through grants that benefit the city, the county, and the Water Supply Corporation. And then to the extent that doesn't cover it, we're actually going to do a reinvestment zone in what you see in green here, the city, so that the county can contribute some of its tax base from the new development to help pay for the water infrastructure. The LMMD is going to contribute some of its tax revenue from its tax base to pay for that water infrastructure. That'll keep the cost of the water low for the customers. It's all a nonprofit operation. The real question is, how does the city benefit from what we're doing at Talese? You got Talese up here, you got the city up here. They're not intended and they're not going to be competitive with each other. They're going to be cooperative with each other, like two brothers or a brother and sister living in the same household. It will provide a secondary water source for the city. It eliminates the need for water use restrictions for city residents once that gets implemented. Provides for the ability to serve water to new developments within the city and its ETJ so it can continue to grow and make available the industrial warehouse needs that you're going to generate with what you're doing on expanding the border crossings and the trade. Very important. Currently, the city cannot annex property anymore. The legislature took that power away. And it has to serve the people of its ETJ with water, so it's in a very difficult position. We've agreed that when people come to us for that water agreement, we won't give it to them unless they agree to voluntarily annex into the city. That will allow the city to continue to grow its tax base. And it's 45,000 acre area of the city's ETJ. That's $45 billion of tax base over the next 40 years that it can now have coming into the city budget because of this agreement that it otherwise couldn't have unless the law were to change in the future. It provides for water service in the ETJ for the economic benefit of the city, allows that $45 billion new development in a 45,000 acre ETJ to benefit the tax base of the city, and allows the city development to keep up with the trade bridge expansions. That is my presentation. I hope it didn't take too long, and happy to answer any questions you have. And let me just encourage you, if you have any questions, think of anything, I'm always available. AB's got my number, I can give it to you. Gene does, and I'm always happy to talk to any of you anytime you want individually.
I'll take any questions from the board at this moment. Anybody?
So it's not part of Laredo?
I'm sorry?
It's not gonna be part of the city of Laredo?
It is, let me put it like this. If you think of San Antonio, when you think of San Antonio, you think of San Antonio. In actuality, San Antonio has a number of different pieces to it. For example, it's got Balcones Heights, it's got Alamo Heights, it's got Terrell Hills, but everybody sees it as San Antonio. That's what this is going to be. It's part of the Laredo community, but technically it's not in the ETJ, it's not in the city limits of Laredo. It's just on the outside of it. But we're actually probably gonna, we're probably, not probably, we are intending to petition to be included in the city's ETJ. So to answer your question, it will be in the jurisdictional boundary of the city when we do that. It's just not in it now. Yeah, but there's some steps we have to take to get it there.
So, everything that you mentioned in this presentation, it's future growth, expansion, which is everything that a city needs and an area needs to grow. But obviously, this is a Port of Entry Advisory Committee. We're all in the trade industry.
Correct.
So when we hear that you have a 11,000 foot runway, that we already have a runway that's pretty close to that size, obviously we're gonna think that there's competition.
Yeah, I understand that.
And there's a rail yard right in your backyard. We have rail coming through here. So the reason that I personally petitioned Talise to come in here is because the more information we know, the better.
Right.
But also, as trade executives or, Laredoans that are very, I don't wanna say very, jealous of our port, it sounds like there is gonna be competition with trade. The housing, the 5 acre lots, 10 acre lots, everything sounds great. It's expansion, it's outside the city limits, should be bigger. But more importantly, we invited you here to talk about the trade aspect of it. It's a pretty big airport that you're gonna build
If it gets built, I know that the executive airport will be built, I'm not sure the other one will. But that's something we've planned because we've been asked to put it in the plan. If Laredo continues to do a good job expanding its airport and growing it, that probably won't happen. It'll probably convert to other uses, frankly. But if there's a need for it, or there's a problem that occurs with Laredo's airport without any fault of Laredo, but because of the surrounding neighborhood or whatever, it actually gives you a relief point to be able to continue to serve that element of trade.
Right.
Backup plan.
I know that working with Congressman Cuellar and local executives, trade executives, there's been hundreds of millions of dollars dumped into our airport
Absolutely.
to upgrade, not just dump, but to upgrade
Yes.
airport, to install a Mexican customs site, a touch and go point, US Customs.
Correct.
That airport is pretty much a gem of our congressmen's. And, as a matter of fact, I think it's being named after him. But, there's the perception, right? And AB and I have had conversations about this, and,
Right.
and it's all about growth, and it's all about, expanding our area. And hopefully, it's just outside of the area where you could be incorporated quicker, but we need some time to get there to be able to, we would love to have this as part of Laredo. When I heard of it the first time, I thought, damn, like, why didn't they incorporate it into Laredo? Why wasn't it part of Laredo? What is Laredo missing that they did not incorporate into Laredo?
It wasn't in the ETJ. The city could
Right.
not annex it. Could not.
Right, the distance and that's it. But, you were talking about water, and I have a couple of questions about water. I know it's not trade, but,
Without water, you have no trade.
well, yeah, true. But the quantity of 50 million gallons have already been, talked about. Has that been verified?
Yes.
Yes, they've already been drilled, or just test drills?
So it's been tested, the hydrology's been confirmed. There's been a number of test wells drilled all the way from the Talise project, all the way past 44. And I can tell you the water is absolutely there,
Good water?
very good water.
Okay.
In fact, the other day I invited Melissa Cigarroa and the RISC folks out there to the well. We turned on the well, we pulled water out right from the glass and drank it. Good water. I'm telling you, it's really good water. It does need a little treatment, but it's, the requirement for drinking water is 1,000 TDS. This water comes out of the ground, depending on which well it is, from 1,300 to 1,800. Seawater is like between 40,000 to 60,000. This water is right there. In fact, CEQ would probably give you a variance to say it's drinking water, but we don't want to do that. We're going to go ahead and treat it down below the 1,000. But it's extremely good water, and it's an abundant water source. and it's deep.
That was gonna be my next question, because I know that if you invited Ms. Cigarroa and Ms. Cortez, that I'm sure that there was a question asked of the ecological impact, that 50 million gallons per day, that would be, there would be a question being asked.
Yes. Yeah, and to give you a perspective on that, it's a lot like the Edwards Aquifer. The difference is this is a sand aquifer. The Edwards Aquifer that runs through San Antonio and beyond, that's a limestone aquifer, but they're both aquifers. So the trick is not withdrawing more water than is recharging into it. And the way this aquifer works, it's a sand aquifer trapped below various layers that are impervious, so it's trapped below those. And it comes up to the surface north of here, like between here and you know, halfway up the state, so to speak, you know, like around Del Rio that way, going out that way. So that's where all the sand comes to the surface. When it rains, that rainwater moves over that sand, it goes down the sand, percolates in, and that's the recharge source for this water. So it's a cycle thing. So it's always being recharged as you pump water out. The trick is to balance how much you pump. That's why we're putting in 42 wells instead of 20 wells. Because if you over pump a well, you'll draw down the aquifer. We don't want to do that. We want to keep it static. We want to keep it, make sure it's kept sustainable.
Does anybody else have a claim to rights to that?
No.
It's solely on Walker property?
Well, the 13,000 acres is all Walker property, but
Right.
we're not just drilling the wells on the 13,000 acres. In fact, we're going to put out a request for public request for people that want to participate to have wells on their property. And if they're in the right location hydrologically, they can. In fact, we're looking at the school districts, public lands. They're in a very good location, and those school district lands can benefit from being the producers of water for the benefit of the schools.
Well, I hate to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
We're at 30 minutes. I know, you know, we'll keep an eye out for any other publications that you might have for
Yes.
for workshops that you might have coming up with the cities. So, appreciate your time, Mr. Earl. Any other questions that anybody might have?
To follow up real quick, I see that you also have some, industrial park development out there that you're looking at, you know, I know, like Rick said right now, we're not looking at competition, but I congratulate you on the project more than anything else, but, long-term, short-term, 30 years, I know that we could possibly by then use the growth, you know, use the opportunity that we're having out there. But do you plan on, I know it's gonna be an exclusive area, obviously, because the size of the property and on top of that, the airport, that, you know, having the planes land there directly before they go to the house and stuff. So that's gonna be a challenge itself. So is this just an exclusive area for, you know, high-end individuals, or is it gonna open it? Because I know you have housing for,
Right.
you know,
So we're putting in housing, everything from about $160,000 homes up to, you know, whatever.
Sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit, yeah.
I won't take up much more time. We just thought on that, so, go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you all very much. I look forward to visiting with you in the future. If you have any questions, you want to come back, any other things that come up, please just let me know so I can address them. And we appreciate any input you could give us on how we can make our project better.
And anything that has to do with trade, we'd be more than happy to participate in,
Thank you very much.
or be invited to.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Next presentation is discussion of, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if you can give our IT specialist just a moment to check the connections and stuff
Sure.
for Zoom meeting, greatly appreciate that.
Sure, the presentation is discussion of possible action by the Rio Grande International Study Center for placement of independent air monitoring stations at the Juarez Lincoln Bridge and World Trade Bridge, and any other matters incident thereto. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. All right, great. State your name, please, for the record.
Yes, good evening, Chairman Laurel and members of the Port of Entry Advisory Committee. My name is Tricia Cortez, and I'm Executive Director of the Rio Grande International Study Center here on agenda item number 2. And, Mr. Chairman, if we may, I wanted to ask, if we could do a quick round of intros. There's people from the EPA, the North American Development Bank, and, University of Massachusetts at Amherst that are on the Zoom, that will, hopefully say a few words if that's okay. Oh, we might have, oh, okay, sorry. If that's okay with you?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Okay. Mr. Donaldson?
Looks like he's on mute.
Oh, okay, if y'all are on mute.
Oh,
There you go.
Yes, we're just doing a
Thank
quick
you.
round of intros.
Guy Donaldson with EPA in Dallas. Thank you for having me here.
And he's the Associate Director of the Air Division for Region 6. And Dr. Rincon?
He's on mute also.
Yes, my name is Carlos Rincon. I'm the director and for the U.S.-Mexico Border Program for Region 6, which is New Mexico and Texas, that borders sister cities, and I'm based here in El Paso, Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Acevedo?
Hi there, Janie Acevedo. I am the acting director of the Office of Public Affairs at EPA Region 6. Thank you, Tricia.
Alrighty. And we also have, let's see here, I'm trying to see, is Jorge Hernandez on the call? Yes, he is.
Yes, thank you, Tricia. My name is Jorge Hernandez. I'm with the North America Development Bank. I'm the project manager for this project, and I'm based in San Antonio, Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. And also joining from NatBank is Ms. Hinojosa.
Good afternoon. My name is Maribel Hinojosa. I am also a project manager for the North American Development Bank, and I'm also in San Antonio. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Dr. Peltier from UMass at Amherst.
Good afternoon, committee. Thank you for your time. I'm Rick Peltier. I'm a professor at the University of Massachusetts in environmental health science.
And he is the technical expert for this project. And we also have Martin Castro.
Hi everyone, good evening. Martin Castro, Watershed Science Director at the Rio Grande International Study Center.
And Eddie Motoro had accepted and was going from TCEQ, the manager of the U.S.-Mexico Border Affairs, but he had a last-minute emergency. But we have Mr. Victor Wong, also with the U.S.-Mexico Border Affairs Office here in the regional TCEQ office. Just very quickly, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to quickly give a brief overview of this, and then have a couple of the individuals that are on the Zoom also say a few words to provide more information about this project. Our organization, we're a 30-year-old environmental nonprofit here based in Laredo. We work on issues related to water, air, climate, resilience, and also community engagement and awareness. We received this grant, and we gave a one-pager, well, it's a 1.5-pager English and Spanish that you should have to explain the overall objectives of this project. It's a $75,000 grant that we received from the Border 2025 program. Those funds come from the EPA, and they are administered by the NatBank and the BEC, the Border Environmental Cooperation Commission. And the objective and purpose for this project is to create a air sensors network with low-cost air sensors that would be in and around bridges, the Downtown Bridge 2 and the World Trade Bridge, and the sort of neighborhoods in and around them on both sides, to have a better understanding of the distribution and exposure of air quality in and around the ports. This project is being done for scientific and research purposes. Our main partner is the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Dr. Peltier will say a few words in just a moment. And essentially, what we are hoping to achieve with this project, for Los Dos Laredos, is to gather data on PM 2.5, fine and particulate matter, and to work in collaboration with the city, the freight industry, the transportation industry, academic institutions, and other interested stakeholders, so that we have a better understanding of what's happening with air quality and find solutions that will help us mitigate any of the air quality issues that the data shows. And we do believe that this can be a very beneficial and collaborative project on multiple levels. We're hoping that with this data, we're able to bring more funding, more resources to Laredo, so that on solutions to mitigate air quality issues, but also Webb County is going to fall into non-attainment with the new EPA standard on PM 2.5 that was issued in February. And this takes about a year or two, this whole process. But if we don't get ahead of the curve and understand this, then it's going to be extremely hard to get permits and federally funded projects, road infrastructure projects approved for Laredo and Webb County. So we want to get ahead of this curve, have an understanding, and come up with locally driven solutions to this issue. That's what we're hoping to achieve with this. We want to do this with industry, with the city too, and the academic community especially. And with that, Mr. Chairman, if we can open up the floor to Mr. Donaldson, the Associate Director of the Air Division for Region 6 EPA.
Thank you, Tricia, and thank you, Chairman and committee. Again, my name is Guy Donaldson, and I am a manager of in EPA's Region 6 office in Dallas. My group, among other things, is responsible for implementing national ambient air quality standards. And so it was mentioned the new particulate matter standard, or PM 2.5, and just a little background on national ambient air quality standards. Those are standards that EPA is required by the Clean Air Act to set the standards. We're required to set those, and I act like I'm involved in that. I'm not involved in the standard setting process, but the standards are to be set at a level, this is what the Clean Air Act says, at a level necessary to protect public health with an adequate margin of safety. And we're supposed to review those standards every 5 years. And if any new scientific studies or that would support revising the standards, we're supposed to do that. And that's what happened with the new PM 2.5 standard. And so that is particulate matter with particles that are 2.5 microns or less. So they're very, very small, much smaller than a human hair. So we set that new standard. It used to be at 12 micrograms per meter cube, and the standard has been reduced to 9 micrograms per meter cube. And so for Laredo, that is the importance of that is that at 12, Laredo was pretty comfortably under that standard. At 9, recent years' data have been above that standard, though it does appear to be trending downward. And so it's a little bit on the fence of where that's going to end up. And I'll just say the standard was issued February 7th of this year, 2024. And it's kind of a 2-year process to do what we call designations. And so the next thing we're required to do under the Clean Air Act is designate areas across the country as either attainment or non-attainment. So we'll be looking at the data. And so for the purpose of this conversation, I just want to make sure everybody understands what data we will look at. And so what we'll look at is what we call federal reference methods. Those are the monitors that generally are run by the state, and in this case, run by TCEQ. but they have to meet the requirements for a federal reference method, kind of the gold standard for air monitoring. They have to meet all the quality assurance, quality control, so that we know that when we make a regulatory decision, that it's based on the best data available. Those are very expensive to run, and so they're not everywhere. In Laredo, there's only one. It is the World Trade Bridge monitor in Laredo, and that's the monitor we're going to be watching. And I just make that point because what we won't be looking at is sensor data. And when we use the term sensor, typically what we mean is low-cost sensors. And when we say low cost, we mean relative to a federal reference method, which can be, tens of thousands of dollars to run, compared to a few $100s to get a sensor and run it. And so I just want to make clear, we're not going to make any regulatory decisions based on the sensors that are planned to be deployed by this project. That said, the sensors we think at EPA that over the last several years, sensor technology has really come a long way. We think the sensors do provide very useful information and really getting to some of the things that Tricia said, giving a more localized information about air quality that you can't get because you can't afford to have reference method monitors everywhere. And so that's useful for planning purposes. It's useful for public information purposes. And that's why we support these types of projects. I think I'm just going to stop there just to say, I hope that's helpful as y'all are thinking about this to understand the differences in the uses of these types of monitors. And I'll stop there for any questions.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Motoro was going to speak next on behalf of TCEQ and those stations that the data that EPA uses, they're not, like he said, are going to be using the data from the sensors in and around the neighborhoods. But if Mr. Wong can say a few words on behalf of Mr. Motoro.
Thank you, Tricia. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, there's actually a speaker over here that picks you up, so you don't have to duck down or anything.
Well, thank you, Tricia. Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Victor Wong with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality Board of Affairs Program in the Laredo office. And we're here to support RISC's proposal to implement low-cost sensor monitoring in the Lincoln International Bridge and the World Trade Bridge in Laredo. TCEQ fostered collaboration between the University of Texas at El Paso and the Autonomous University of Ciudad Juarez to manage and produce a low-cost sensor study in the El Paso and Juarez area. The research team installed approximately 40 sensors near high schools, near traffic roads, and these devices measured PM2.5 at 26 sites in Juarez and El Paso. The project lasted about a year, and the goal of the study was to improve air quality monitoring and produce a case study of scientific measurement and air quality using low-cost sensors and fostered by National Technical Exchange on air quality. And as Mr. Donaldson mentioned, sensors can be very beneficial because they offer a low-cost alternative, and they are very important in measuring and evaluating air quality trends and to troubleshoot any equipment to reduce variations. And as Tricia mentioned, TCEQ does not regulate any data from low-cost sensor monitoring. And as Mr. Donaldson mentioned also, continuous air quality monitoring stations are used to generate data that is used to be in compliance for the EPA's national ambient air quality standards that are set by the Clean Air Act. So what are the benefits of low-cost sensor studies? Well, they will bring more investment to the community and incentives to the trucking industry because TCEQ has a Texas emission reduction program that provides resources to the trucking industry and transportation sector to retrofit heavy-duty diesel engines. It would foster collaboration on air quality issues. A committee can be formed with representatives of the trucking industry, city, public health sector, and academia to discuss in a constructive way how to improve air quality in the Laredo region. Perhaps they can share data on that is generated by cam stations on PM 2.5 periodically, and then work in an innovative way to see how they can obtain resources to address any type of high PM 2.5 peaks. And also these studies will encourage the youth to be more involved in science and technology careers, because once you incorporate the academia into this process, then you will get more participation from students in research that will enable them to be more involved in careers related to science. And the current PM 2.5 standards that are set at 24 hours are 35 micrograms per cubic meter. The World Trade Bridge yesterday reported 22.8 micrograms per cubic meter. And that was information that you can obtain from our TCEQ real-time air quality page that displays any reports that you can generate for every emission standard that is measured by our continuous air quality monitoring stations. And I think this is a great opportunity for the transportation industry to be involved in this project because, as Tricia mentioned, once the levels of PM 2.5 go into effect in 2-3 years, which are going to be from 12 micrograms per cubic meter that they're actually set right now, are going to be down to 9 micrograms per cubic meter. It's going to be more challenging for the city to be in compliance with the new NAC standards that are set for PM 2.5. And it's going to make it more difficult to conduct and execute more road construction projects. So I'm here to encourage the members of the transportation industry, the trade industry, to participate in this project and be part of this committee, so that together we can work on ways to improve air quality and encourage more investment in our city. Thank you.
Quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
You're with TCEQ, correct?
Yes, sir.
It's my understanding you already have sensors at the World Trade Bridge that monitor the PM 2.5. Is that correct?
Yes, we have 3 monitoring stations in the city of Laredo. One of them is at the World Trade Bridge. They monitor, the one at the World Trade Bridge monitors PM 2.5.
So you want to put another monitor on World Trade Bridge to monitor, a smaller monitor to monitor the same thing?
Well, this is, as I mentioned before, this is for research purposes, and this monitor, the Rio International Study Center asked us for authorization to co-locate their sensor near our camp station, and because this information will be more accurate for them to report on the PM 2.5 conditions.
So the cheaper monitor that you're wanting to put in there is going to take better readings than the large sensor that you have there already?
No, the PM 2.5, as I mentioned before, this is for research purposes. The gold standard, as Mr. Donaldson mentioned, is the data that is generated from the camp stations. But the local sensors will identify any trends of air quality and also any emerging PM 2.5 peaks that could be addressed through community involvement and other type of studies and research. The main goal is to encourage more investment so that we can conduct this type of studies in the near future and find ways on how to work together and address some of those peaks that can be reported. But as I mentioned, Laredo's in compliance right now for PM 2.5. The current 24-hour standard is 35 micrograms per cubic meter. And yesterday at the World Trade Bridge, the highest level was 22.8. So it's not going to trigger any sort of like issues with TCEQ because also the local sensors are not regulated by TCEQ or
Laredo is in compliance with the measurements that it's guided by.
Yes.
Well,
So if they're in compliance, I would understand it if Laredo was not in compliance.
It's in compliance with the 12 micrograms, but the new rule that's coming out is 9 micrograms, and Laredo exceeds 9 micrograms. But as Mr. Donaldson said, it doesn't happen overnight. It's this process that's called, Mr. Donaldson, what is that? A designation, and it takes 1 or 2 years. And so right now, all the data from the World Trade Station is showing that Webb County is not in compliance, but Webb County has to go through the EPA designation process, which takes a little bit of time.
So it's a buffer zone to become compliant. It's like a 2-year window?
Well, and Mr. Donaldson can probably speak more to that, Mr. Loudon, because right now Laredo is exceeding the 9, but I believe it's under the 12 except for peak periods. So because the new designations have not been formalized, it's still the 12, even though the new standard that's come out is 9, but it takes a little bit of time to formalize those designations.
So, I mean, you go ahead, sir.
And sorry, if Mr. Donaldson wants to explain
No,
that.
that's fine, that's fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
So as a trucking industry, I represent the trucking industry. I manage a trucking company for a living. We are heavily regulated by the federal government, DPS, FMCSA, DOT. Our engines today are 100 times better than they were in 1950, 1960, 1980, right? And the technology of all the engines that our trucks have, whether it's a Detroit diesel, Cummins engine, Caterpillar, it gets better every year. So what I'm hearing from you is, or from the proposal here is, we are in compliance. You are predicting that we will get worse. But you're also saying that at certain peak times, in World Trade Bridge, for example, the pollution is higher. I think it's common sense that if you have 8,000 trucks parked at 6 p.m. in any area, the pollution will be higher than at 4 in the morning when World Trade Bridge is closed. I don't think we need a sensor to tell us that, in my opinion, number one. Number two, if it only happens at certain peak of hours, that is a side effect of traffic. I guarantee you, when the checkpoint is backed up, or if there's an accident on 35, I've been personally stuck behind an accident on 35 and everybody stopped, that pollution for those 2-3 miles is higher than where traffic is flowing. That sounds like common sense to me. And if there's already a sensor there monitoring this, you know, our concern is, you said this is gonna help the industry. I'm not sure how this will help me as a trucking company in any way whatsoever. Additionally, you know, the trucks we buy, we don't make them in our backyard. They're built and they are regulated. You know, the emissions, the pollution that they emit, it's regulated, every single one of them. Every vehicle out on the road generates some sort of pollution, right? But if you put 100 of them together, they're gonna generate more together, right? That's fair assumption to make. So we're a little concerned in regards to what is the actual objective of this.
If I may, and
also, I want to bring on Dr. Peltier, who's the air scientist and has done these projects elsewhere. But the idea is, this isn't to monitor the bridge per se. It's to monitor what is happening in the neighborhoods on both sides of World Trade and of Bridge number 2. And I think as a community, if you live in and around the World Trade Bridge, or you live in and around Bridge 2, or on the Nuevo Laredo side, I think you'd want to know and understand what are the exposure levels. Now, there is a lot of federal funding that is becoming available through the IIJA and BIL. For us to be competitive, to have real data, we can show this and go out and be competitive to get funding for strategies, whether it's electrification, of replacements, of tree canopy systems, vegetative barriers that can sequester carbon. All of these things, the data makes us more competitive, because if you just write a proposal and say, well, you know, there's kind of one station at the World Trade Bridge, but that's all we've got. We don't know anything about in and around downtown. We don't know much about the neighborhoods and the businesses in and around close to World Trade Bridge. So the idea is, how do you leverage this data to be more competitive, to bring in other funding sources that are really rolling out at a significant level from federal granting programs. And I was wondering, Mr. Chairman, if we can bring in either Mr. Donaldson to clarify any points, but especially Dr. Rick Peltier.
They're on the call. I mean,
Okay,
they can.
so I don't know.
But my question is,
Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I think we have a lot more questions than.
Yes, Dr. Peltier, are you able to address these concerns from Mr. Maldonado, or the questions that he has right now?
Let's finish this first.
Sure. So while I'm a college professor, there won't be a quiz at the end of this, but I will start talking a little bit about the science, and I will be brief. What Mr. Donaldson was talking about, these sensors that measure air pollution for EPA, there's only one in Laredo, and it happens to be at the World Trade Bridge. These are big, expensive sensors. They're sort of the Ford Taurus of sensors that are out there. They're boxy, but they're reliable, and they always do their job. The sensors we're talking about in this study is more like a go-kart you build in your garage. We're going to send 19 sensors to Laredo. Only 2 are going to be located, or we hope to have them located at TCEQ sites. And the main purpose of locating one of these sensors at the World Trade Bridge has actually nothing to do with the World Trade Bridge itself. It has to do with the fact that there's a Ford Taurus that's parked there in a box that TCEQ is operating. What we need to do with these low-cost sensors, they don't actually measure PM 2.5. They only estimate it. They give us a ballpark number. And without a way to ground truth this data, a gold standard, if you will, it's science fiction. And so the primary purpose of putting these sensors at the World Trade Center, the World Trade Bridge site, at the TCEQ site, is to what we call a co-location. That is, that we're going to measure the same air that's at the TCEQ monitor, the EPA monitor, and be able to compare that and adjust our data. This is not a study that's looking at emissions from the World Trade Bridge or Bridge 2. This is a study where 17 of those sensors are going to be located in residential communities. They'll be located in neighborhoods and in parks. Half of them will be in Mexico, give or take. And so this is really looking at how air pollution varies across Laredo. Yes, there is air pollution at the World Trade Bridge. There's no doubt about it. But what we're really interested in seeing is how it varies across the community, because that's what this is about. It's a community monitoring grant. It's not a regulatory grant or even a really sophisticated scientific grant. It's the use of these inexpensive sensors. They are about $500 a piece, something like that, that are small. They're the size of a couple of, maybe a paperback textbook, that allow us to estimate PM 2.5. But an estimation is no good if you're talking about data. You need to be able to ground truth that data to something that is acceptable, that's sound, and that's where the EPA monitor comes in. That Ford Taurus producing that same value over and over again that's been operated by TCEQ. And so we're really not looking to establish a redundant sensor at the World Trade Bridge. That's not really the purpose of this at all. We're really looking to calibrate our other sensors that are located primarily in residential communities. Does that answer your question adequately?
I'm not sure it answers my question. It basically says that you want to put a sensor at World Trade Bridge to not affect World Trade Bridge, so then why put a sensor in a place where you potentially don't want to affect it? That's very confusing.
Sure. The only reason why the World Trade Bridge is in our worldview is because of that EPA monitor that happens to be located there. That's where it lives, and that's where it's always going to be. And so if we want to make sure that these sensors report accurate data, they really have to be connected next to something that's making a gold standard measurement. And that's that EPA monitor that's at the World Trade Bridge. So that's the real reason why we're going to be there.
Do those monitors not get calibrated or on an annual basis, biannual basis? I mean, do they just stick them there and never get checked to see if they're working, or?
Are you talking about the EPA monitors?
Right, the current one. No, the current ones that are there, I mean, are they not, I mean, I have machinery at my office where it's calibrated on you know, cyclical timeline so that I can make sure that it's always on point. I don't buy another sensor to check the current thing that I have that needs measuring. So my question is, does that current machine not get calibrated annually?
The CEQ has a contractor that is responsible for the calibration and maintenance of monitoring stations.
So Dr. Peltier was saying the calibration of the low-cost sensors in the residential areas, not the calibration of the TCQ EPA station. Okay. So,
yes, go ahead.
It just got to my attention that you are saying Laredo and you are focusing on World Trade Bridge. It's like putting a sensor on my car garage with the door closed. So if we're talking about the pollution in Laredo, why don't we spread it all the way on the residential Bridge 1 and all the La Bota Ranch and everything where the residential homes are? Why World Trade Bridge?
It's a good point.
Because you mentioned that in El Paso it was on the school, on some elementary schools, middle school, but now you want to put it on a World Trade Bridge?
I agree with you, and we want this SEMIA to be the base that can deepen the community air monitoring program. Right now, the max that this grant will give is $75,000. And so this is a grant where we're focusing on a commercial bridge and then on the downtown bridge too, and the residential areas on both sides, and I know on the other side of World Trade it's more rural with some businesses. So we want to be able to get this started in both sides at both bridges, and then use this in order to help build out, as you mentioned, a more robust system. But vamos por pasos. This is just the first step, and this is just of doing an air monitoring program. I know the city of Laredo has expressed interest in this, and this is a good first step to get something like this established and started. But I agree with you. We want to spread this out with more funding to other parts of Laredo as well.
And I'm sorry if I'm too blunt, but I don't know how to say it in a political way, but it looks to me like we are trying to manipulate data in order to get a grant.
No.
Well, I sort of agree with that, because it sounds like you're gonna put a monitor right on our muffler.
Yeah, I mean,
But I mean, there's questions.
Yeah, can I?
yeah, go ahead.
I have several questions. The first one, well, you know, World Trade Bridge is our shrine. I mean, we live off that bridge. But the other questions that I have is, what other cities have it besides El Paso? I mean, what other ports of entry do they have these monitor things, and how have they benefited?
We can ask Mr. Donaldson because he is the Associate Director for the Air Division for EPA, and he may have more info on that with the area that Region 6 covers, which is Texas and New Mexico. They don't cover Arizona or California. But Mr. Davidson, are you able to speak to that question by Mr. Dominguez?
Yeah, well, I'm going to answer it the way I think I understand the question. So in terms of the federal reference method monitors, the monitors that the gold standard, like the World Trade Bridge monitor, EPA has rules that require those monitors to be deployed in cities above certain populations. And I have to apologize, I'm not expert on all the details of that, but you will find PM 2.5 federal reference method monitors in any large city, such as Houston, Dallas, Laredo, El Paso. And those monitors are there to give an estimate for regulatory purposes of whether the air in those areas are meeting our health-based meeting our health-based standards. So Laredo happens to be big enough to require one of those monitors, and that monitor is what we're going to use for regulatory purposes. In terms of the sensors, more and more sensors are going out across the country. There's various companies that make these low-cost sensors. And so there's more and more data out there along those lines. What this study, and I don't want to speak for Dr. Peltier too much, but it brings that added level of deploying 19 monitors, but putting some of them right by the actual reference method monitor. In that way, you can tell if the low cost monitor has a bias and adjust for it. But that helps the estimates of air quality made more broadly in the neighborhoods be more accurate. It's still not going to be, of a regulatory quality, but it's more accurate and more useful in that way by having some that you can kind of compare to the standard.
So it is going to be added onto the monitor that's currently there then?
It'll be co-located, as Dr. Peltier said. It's co-located so that, if the reference method monitor, the yardstick that we're going to use for regulatory purposes, compare that data that the sensor gets, and if the sensor reads a little high or reads a little low, you can kind of know how to consider that data at that point. And that sort of adjustment, you can also think that, and Dr. Peltier, this is where I'm getting out of my depth, but it is, as I understand it, then you can kind of have an algorithm that you would apply to the other other sensors that you deploy, the other 17 sensors.
How many
Is that
sensors
fair?
does the Valley have?
Or Dr. Peltier, oh,
Wait, there's a question here, but
How many sensors does the Valley have?
I don't know. I know that the Valley has 2 reference method monitors down there.
for the whole valley?
Yeah, I that's what I'm aware of. There may be more, but that is, Laredo only has 1 reference method monitor. I think El Paso has 2. I think Houston has 4 or 5. They're expensive. You don't end up with a lot.
Well, according
so that's where the sensors help to give you information in the areas where you don't have the high quality monitoring data.
According to the TCEQ website, there's 3 in Laredo.
and one.
Not-
that
Well,
meant-
but there's only 1 PM 2.5.
Right.
There's 3 monitors that monitor other pollutants, monitoring stations that monitor other pollutants.
So they put that, the one
But
that we
the
do
only
have.
the one that does PM 2.5.
So the one that we do have is right by our muffler.
Oh,
Yeah,
wait,
Arturo, there's
blades.
5 and 5 in the valley.
And there's 5 in the valley?
There's 5 in the valley.
5 measuring PM 2.5?
There's one in South Padre, one in Matamoros, one in Westlaco, one in McAllen, one in Edinburgh. But going back to Monica's question, it looks like on this proposal, you guys are gonna get 16. So there's 8 for Laredo and 7 to 8 from Real Laredo. Is that correct with the 75,000 or no?
Dr. Peltier, can you, Mr. Gonzalez is just asking about the number of sensors for Laredo and Nuevo Laredo, and then I know we're gonna keep a few extra on standby in case one is faulty or something like that. But can you answer that question from Mr. Gonzalez?
I'm sorry, before you answer the question, I have a motion to extend the meeting 30 minutes before we.
Motion to extend the meeting an extra 30 minutes. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Dr. Peltier.
Yeah, the plan is to bring 19 sensors down. A couple of them will be held in reserve because they do get vandalized. They do fail in the field, so having replacements on hand is useful. And so we would wind up deploying somewhere around 17, roughly half in Mexico, half in the United States, all across the border. For this kind of project, the calibration is everything. Indeed, it is. We do use some statistics to correct the data. And when I say correct data, I don't actually mean that we're changing the data in an inappropriate way. We're tuning it to whatever the EPA is telling us what the concentrations are. When you're weighing a truck, you always have a standard that you use. You might use a scale, but that scale has to be calibrated with a gold standard periodically. What we propose to do is co-locate this low-cost sensor with an EPA monitor that just happens to be at the World Trade Bridge, because that's the only PM monitor that the EPA operates in Laredo, and co-locate and calibrate every day. And then we have more confidence in the 16 or so other sensors that are sprinkled around the city and in Mexico, that the data that they're producing can be corrected and is as accurate as it can be. But at the end of the day, we're aware that the data we produce is research data, and it's not anything that the EPA is going to look at. TCEQ will be interested in it, but they can't act on it. They might be curious about what it shows, but there's no regulatory or statutory reason to consider that data. It is a community grant that's meant to look at where air pollution might be across the region. All of it has to be centered by whatever that EPA monitor is reporting as our primary calibration source. The pollution that comes out of a truck or any kind of diesel combustion, the particles are so small that these sensors we're talking about don't actually see them. The particle sizes, without getting too technical, are about 100 nanometers in size, and these sensors only see 300 nanometers and larger. So the particles that are coming right out of a tailpipe, this won't see it. It's insensitive to it. So what we're really looking at is broad concentration across the region that comes from cars and trucks that are across the city and in Mexico, but also factories and wind-blown dust and all of the different things that we see in urban environments. So at the end of the day, what we're really seeking is just the ability to put a sensor next to a location that has an EPA monitor so that we can make sure that the other 16 or so sensors are telling us the truth.
I get it. The thing about it is business people, we have some kind of concern, like Jerry said right now. One of the biggest factors is, this is data that the government's going to see as well, and they're going to set industry standards on this. Are they going to make us do more for our trucks or do more? And I know that Jerry, I was at a meeting with him about a month ago. He was talking about trying to get more electronic trucks and just the expenses involved. So I know there's challenges in there. Obviously it looks like this is a grant that we should be taking advantage of. We're looking forward to that, but our concern is still, down the line as business people, hey, we want better quality of life, obviously better air, but, we just don't want to have it added on to our business and models as well, so.
Well, it was the benefits. What's the benefit? That was my question. What was the benefit? What other cities have benefit out of this data that you gather, and who does the data belong to?
That was going to be my question.
So I don't know if Dr. Peltier or Mr. Hernandez from the NatBank, who's the grant project manager for this, can speak to Mr. Dominguez's question. So he's asking, who does this data belong to? Like, who's going to be able to see this data? And number two, he's asking, what are the benefits of doing such a community air monitoring program? And what other communities, what types of benefits have there been in other communities that y'all can speak to? So either Dr. Peltier or Mr. Davidson or Mr. Hernandez, if any of y'all can speak to those questions by Mr. Dominguez.
Not everybody speak up at once, please.
Sure. So the data are public. They belong to the community. We'll put this stuff, make it available in near real time, hours delay. The data flows to computers that are somewhere in the world, and then we put that data in a database that anybody can access. We'll then kind of clean up that data because it does come in pretty messy, and we'll produce some basic graphics that RISC will probably echo every day, showing what the concentrations might look like. As I said, the data are public. This is a public engagement project. This isn't a regulatory project where we're pointing a finger at a specific location or a specific source of pollution. That being said, providing more information across a complex city like Laredo is only going to benefit Laredo, because the key to solving any air quality problems are understanding where your air quality problems come from. And whether it's cars and trucks, Class 8 vehicles, factories, welding, barbecues, all of the different things that we see in our cities, it's a mixture of all these different sources. And right now, we only have one way to measure PM in Laredo, and that just happens to be next to the World Trade Bridge that's operated by TCEQ. And so we're trying to open up the door to say, where is air pollution high, low? Does it happen during the day, nighttime, middle of the night? What does the variability look like across Laredo? And what does that mean for the people who live in Laredo? So that's the objective to this project. It is indeed, like I said, a community-based project in which we will closely engage the community with RISC, and the data will be public and made available to anybody who wants it.
I understand what you mentioned about you want to measure throughout Laredo, but yet it's being focused on such small areas. If you were to come to tell us and say, hey, there are 16 sensors and they're going to be spread out through all the schools, because we're focusing more on our future, right? So if you were going to say, I'm going to have 8 sensors and I'm going to pick 8 schools, 4 in UISD, 4 in LISD, and we're going to spread it out over all the city, then that would equate to what you're talking about. Carne asadas, smoking, barbecues, cars, trucks, buses, everything. But it's not. It's being centered on a spot where you know that it's going to be extremely high.
Well, if you're talking about the World Trade Bridge, as I said, we don't really care about the measurements at the World Trade Bridge, with one exception. We want to see what the EPA monitor is seeing, because we want to be able to compare our low-cost sensor with what EPA is reporting. And that's the primary reason why we want to do the World Trade Bridge. These sensors will be distributed. We are actually targeting a school. One of the challenges to locate one of these, but we have to get community buy-in first. We have to make sure that the community wants this data. This isn't something where I want to swoop in. And in fact, this is really meant to be a Laredo-run project, not meant to me. I'm just the technical advisor to provide access to the instrumentation and to help interpret the data when it starts flowing in. And so I'm not sure we're focusing on one specific location. We are distributed across the city.
Can your project move forward without World Trade Bridge?
Sure, but it's going to start to produce data sets that are very uncertain, and you're going to draw the wrong conclusions.
But
And that won't be helpful to anybody.
But I don't know, Mr. Hernandez, like the Border 2025 project selected this project for Laredo and Nuevo Laredo because of the scope of the project within the confines of that budget, right? And so we're seeing it as a seed grant. And so I don't know, Jerry, if we can just change locations, because the NADBank and the EPA and the BEC took in applications from San Diego, Tijuana, down to Brownsville, Matamoros. They made their selection of awards, and this grant was selected for the scope of its proposal. And I don't know, Mr. Hernandez, if you want to speak further to that and how the Border 2025 program works.
Well, I think we're going to go into a rabbit hole there where we already got enough information that we need maybe a couple more questions, but maybe a couple more comments. My main concern is you said something very important. Number one question, and then we'll go on to the comments. But my one question is Nuevo Laredo on board with this?
We're gonna, yes, yes, we're going to place this in private homes. It's not gonna be at, and in the Laredo side too, it's gonna be private homes, private businesses. We've already gotten some, people have said, yes, please put it at my business, please put it at my home. And so that's how these sensors are going to work in both places. They're gonna be a private residences that are in a specific radius, or a business or a home is where they're gonna get located, rather than a right-of-way or a sidewalk
Right.
or something like
Right.
that.
So second question is, you mentioned that somebody, that Laredo, the city of Laredo is on board with it. If I'm not mistaken, at the last city council meeting, this was rejected by the city manager, and the city council decided to send this to the Port of Entry Advisory Committee. Who at the city is on board?
So what I meant by that is that the city of Laredo used to have the contract for the TCEQ/EPA sensors and lost that contract. And the city, according to the conversations I've had with TCEQ in Austin, the city is interested in gaining contracts or access to running these 3 air quality stations that TCEQ and EPA have in Laredo. So the city has expressed to the TCEQ their interest in getting back into the air quality station kind of space and world. So they have expressed that interest to the TCEQ. That's my understanding from conversations I've had with TCEQ people in Austin. And the issue with the city manager's recommendation is that the rationale was incorrect, and we've explained that in the sense that the rationale for rejecting this proposal, it's stated in the council agenda item, was that it was going to be like a duplicate monitor to the World Trade Bridge station, which it is not. And
So you could see how that could be construed as a duplicate,
right,
right?
yes,
And
and
I'm
that's why
sorry.
we're having this conversation,
Right,
and this is very
right,
important,
right,
and
right.
we have,
So, yeah,
these
so
folks here.
If I
So,
may,
Go
I
ahead.
feel we're in this conversation now because a decision was made to put this at World Trade Bridge without consulting with the users and the people that actively use the bridge. Our drivers, this is how we make a living. This is how Laredo makes a living. So respectfully, you made a decision to do something at a place where I don't think any of the associations from Nuevo Laredo or Laredo or at a Texas level, I sit on the executive committee for the Texas Trucking Association, were ever asked any of these questions. So respectfully, now you want us to support something that we feel we're being attacked as an industry, and that is the perception that we are getting. So it is a little difficult for us to say, yeah, go for it, do this, when now the language is, well, it has to be there because that's what we said it's gonna be. That should have been consulted respectfully before that request was done, and see if we were all in agreement as a city, as an industry, to put them there, in my opinion.
How do they select the locations?
working with Dr. Peltier, we worked on this, and also respectfully, right, the air belongs to all of us. The bridges are supported by public tax dollars as well. And so I just want to hope that that's understood, like public health and public air belongs to everybody. We are not here to go after the trucking or trade industry, neither is the NADBank, neither is the EPA, neither is TCEQ or Dr. Peltier. That is not the purpose or the goal of this project, to attack and go after and crush the trucking industry. I think, we want to make that point very clear. This is a science and academic project to better understand exposure of air pollution in our community, because we don't have anything. We have so little in terms of understanding with the winds, because this is going to measure how air pollution gets distributed with the way wind works over a 12-month continuous period. So we have a better understanding. Right. And so that's the purpose of this. We just want to make that clear. We all want our community to thrive. It's why we're doing this July 30th business workshop with leaders in the trade industry like yourselves. We hope all of you are going to be there because we all want Laredo to thrive and prosper, and things are moving in directions with low-cost sensors going across many communities, and also other strategies that other communities are utilizing to improve air quality, whether that's electrification and EV charging networks or tree canopy systems. And we want the best for Laredo because we believe we deserve that. And Port Laredo is a powerhouse, and we also feel Port Laredo can also be a leader in improving air quality. And figuring out what this is so that we can bring in investments and make this win-win all around so that we are thriving environmentally, economically, and socially. I think we all want that for this community.
I think the reason that it got sent to us was because of the location preference, obviously. So that's why it was sent to us. If you were gonna say to the schools, you would be talking to UISD or LISD boards. So you can see how there's a conception of duplication. You can see how there's a conception of trade focus. You can see how there's a conception of misconception.
Right.
So,
Yes.
I want to finish with, and unless somebody else has any other questions, I'd like to
And
finish
Mr.
with.
Clavel, I think Mr. Donaldson just had his hand raised. Just wanted to
Oh,
flag that for you.
I can't see that. It doesn't pop up.
Okay, it just says, Mr. Donaldson, I think you have
Go
your
ahead.
hand raised also. So anyway, Mr. Levitz.
No, go ahead, Mr. Donaldson. We're gonna wrap
Thanks,
this
I
up.
appreciate it. I want to just emphasize the point again, just so we're clear, because I think the addition of these low-cost sensors, whether it's the ones that would be like to locate at, co-locate at the bridge, or the other sensors throughout Laredo or Nuevo Laredo, they aren't going to have any impact on any regulation going forward. It's not going to have an impact on our decisions one way or another, whether Laredo would end up non-attainment. It's not going to have an impact on potential future truck standards, emission standards. When folks are telling you this is a scientific study, that's how the EPA is going to view it, as a scientific study. And to some degree, I remember the words Dr. Peltier used, but it's not a very sophisticated scientific study. It is just to provide some additional information. It is not information that we're going to use for any regulatory purpose. And we can't. I mean, just to be clear, EPA cannot use this data for that purpose because it does not meet the standards that we put in our rules for data we're going to use for regulatory purposes. So I just feel like I would be remiss if I didn't emphasize that point one more time, because I recognize there's a lot of sensitivity around regulation and where EPA gets its information for that regulation. But this is a pretty bright line issue in terms of what we can use the data for.
Yeah, I think everybody expresses Mrs. Cortez's wanting of clean air. We all want clean air. We all have children. We all want clean air as well. If the rules are gonna change, and there's a buffer of 2 years, this is my point on this. The rules are gonna change, and you're gonna go from a 12 to a 9, and you have 2 years to change it, but you wanna measure it 4 months later, we're gonna fail. And I think that's why the city said that they didn't accept this at this moment. It's a great project, and we all want clean air, but, I mean, it's tough.
So what I understand is that you have this TCQ high, very sophisticated equipment, and all you're gonna do is check if they're doing the same readings. Is that my understanding? But then again, what if there's a big difference? What happens after that? I mean, if that says a 9 and you say 6, what's gonna happen?
Dr. Peltier, are you able to answer that with Mr. Dominguez's question?
Sure, that's where the science comes in. There has to be a scientific explanation for that. And that's what we do for a living. We figure out why those things are different. And indeed, that does happen a lot. More often than not, low-cost sensors over-report, which means that a TCEQ might report 9, and a low-cost sensor will report 18 or 20. And so we're able to correct that data and apply calibrations to get that data much closer to EPA. At the end of the day, it's actually never going to totally match EPA's reporting data. There's always going to be some variability in that data set because that's part of scientific uncertainty. But for the output for Laredo, we really want to start to identify where we see air pollution across the region, not just at a bridge or at a school. We want to see, is it hot? Do we see hot spots in certain places or cold spots in certain places? And we have to do that within the bounds of uncertainty of data, because data is everything to us. And I think having this co-location at the World Trade Bridge is really important to make sure that the interpretations of these low-cost sensors is correct.
It was interesting that the other guy, or the other gentleman mentioned that Dallas, Houston, and then Laredo, and we don't get the same funding they get. Actually, because of the population, we don't get the funding that we would like, and I don't understand that part, how we were selected and like a big city, and when you go ask for funds, we're not treated the same way because of population.
Just to move forward, because I know that we've had a lot of discussion on this, and Councilwoman Melissa, go ahead and speak up first.
Hello, Councilmember Melissa Cigarroa for the record. I just wanted to address what Mr. Laurel said. The city, there was an assumption made about why the city didn't move forward with it. I think it's really a misunderstanding. So the sensor data is not intended to measure and say, look, World Trade Bridge is doing this. That's not, the low-cost sensor is not intended to do that. The low-cost sensor located to that high-quality, very expensive sensor that the city cannot afford to put in neighborhoods up and down the river. It's intended to be a scientific standard, just like Dr. Peltier was saying. So the low-cost sensor located on the bridge next to the high-cost one, they'll get two readings. They can compare that and they can say, okay, this low-cost sensor is reading the pollution that the high-cost sensor is providing, and it'll be at, we're under 12. It's going to show that data in those 2 years. We can't get away from that, right? But that's the high-cost sensor that exists there. So you're just locating it next door to get that measurement that Dr. Peltier can then use to go read the low-cost sensors in the neighborhoods and figure out what's going on in our neighborhoods. So nothing that happens at the World Trade Bridge is intended to, it does not, the low-cost sensors doesn't inform anything about the World Trade Bridge. We're looking for trend lines in the neighborhoods that are located between World Trade Bridge and our downtown area. And that's important because this becomes a matter of public health. We're just looking at trend lines. It exists already, but there are actual mitigation standards, projects that you can do to reduce reduce pollution and create higher air quality. Like we're saying, this is what we want for our city. How do we do that? Now, Houston, Dallas, they have more money. They get to do fancier things. But we don't have the data to begin to understand where we need to focus our efforts as a city to reduce pollution in those neighborhoods, or if it's needed. It may be that the winds blow everything out because we get a nice breeze and those neighborhoods actually are not going to be falling without the attainment, right? Maybe it is just located where you see the high truck traffic and we need to do something there and actually we can breathe safe in our neighborhoods. But if you live in that neighborhood and you have kids with asthma and you can't explain why, you're going to want to know if there's something you can do for them and it's related to where you live, or maybe the city can come in and plant more trees or create the vegetative barriers, or we can work on congestion pricing so we can move trucks around or other congestion measures so we know where the problems are, not so that we're focused just on the bridge, but so that we're improving the quality of life for the people that live here. And this is a low-cost way to do it. So it's important for two reasons for Laredo, because we need to know what's happening in our neighborhoods and how we as a city can better protect public health. But also this is going to serve as a way to improve low-cost sensors. This is like a pilot project. It's being done in certain cities around, but it hasn't expanded because low-cost sensors, it's a developing technology. and you're trying to make it available for more and more communities. So they don't have to rely on these high-cost sensors that also require very high-cost scientists to determine all the data and do all the testing. That is cost prohibitive. I mean, think of the communities that live along the river that Eagle Pass. Are they gonna be able to afford something like that? These low-cost sensor studies help the development of low-cost sensors to determine air pollution problems, and then we can innovate how we're going to improve air quality for all of us.
Is there a reason why you're not requesting these sensors to be put in District 3?
If they would have asked me, I would have happily done it. But my area is not yet one of the areas where they decided that that data needs to be collected. You start out with a pilot program and then you expand. And I certainly, look at Highway 359, I certainly would like to see those low-cost sensors in the neighborhoods that border Highway 359.
So wouldn't you agree with us that these sensors would be better used if they were to be spread out throughout the whole city instead of just in one specific spot?
It isn't, you have to do the pilot study first.
You're gonna do the pilot study and I can go ahead and save you the $75,000 and tell you that we're gonna blow it out of the water because of where you're selecting. Your selecting site is not conducive of the rest of the city. It's the most populated.
No. The one location at the World Trade Bridge is going to find pollution. Of course it is. But that measurement, you need to compare it to the high quality sensor so that you can interpret the data that the other low-cost sensors are finding in neighborhoods, in schools, in people's private homes, between World Trade Bridge and downtown. Those are neighborhoods there. You have to compare and get what the readings of that low-cost sensor will be, so you can make comparisons and read the data that those low-cost sensors will find in the different neighborhoods.
The neighborhoods that are listed here.
You can't say that you know what the pollution levels are in those neighborhoods. Trucks aren't going through those neighborhoods. You can make assumptions, but
The
we
neighborhoods that
cannot,
you've selected are neighborhoods that are adjacent to World Trade Bridge, correct?
all the way down to downtown, West Laredo.
There's Azteca,
Yes.
Guadalupe neighborhoods.
Yes.
Along the college, right?
Yes.
And on the other side of Bridge number 2. And then Sunset, Villa San Agustin, and Acuero, which are right next to, adjacent to the World Trade Bridge.
Right.
So, I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I mean,
Bottom line is, we have to they can send to us, and we gotta
They
make a
send it to
motion,
us.
make a
So-
motion, and then either agree or disagree and get back to the council, right?
So just to be, just so that everybody can be on the same page, that this was brought to city management, city management rejected it to city council, for whatever reasons. City council decided not to take a vote, but to push it to the port of entry, since it was on the World Trade Bridge.
And I will say the hope in that was to better inform the industry, so that the industry would understand it is not trying to shine a spotlight on it or attack any of the trade that goes on. It's just to take advantage of the high quality sensor that exists on the World Trade Bridge.
Right. Thank you. So just so we know, so the mayor decided not to take a vote at the last city council meeting and send it to the port of entry to see if we agree or disagree with city management, or if we want to move ahead or deny, in our most humble opinion, to city council, so that city council can bring it up to a vote at the next city council meeting next week. Correct?
That's what I understand.
Yes, okay, good. I just wanted all of us to be on the same page, because all of a sudden, we've never seen something come through reversed. You know, we always get information and we push it down to city council and city management, but this time it went the other way around. And that's why there are comments of, you went around trade to get back to trade. So that's why it's like, hey, it is what it is, but, so.
Going out there, I don't know if this is the right, but you said there's gonna be more information on the July 30th, right? They can provide more information at this event, or is this just exclusively for trucks and solar panels?
And warehousing.
Yeah, it's separate.
So it has nothing to do with it?
This is not a workshop based on.
No.
Correct.
So we couldn't postpone it to.
That's what I was thinking about doing, but.
That's what my thoughts were.
No, it's not.
Right.
This is something completely
The
different.
council wants us to make a recommendation so that way we can make a
Yeah,
recommendation.
I do not recommend tabling it because their meeting is next week.
Okay.
So this is gonna be on their agenda.
There is a meeting that the COMSE group has arranged with the mayor and us and some of these agencies on Friday morning of this week. So we're going to have another meeting on Friday morning with the mayor and individuals or groups within the COMSE group.
And I just wanted to thank you for your time. I mean, I
Thank you,
realize, I don't think council meant to just push it to you, but this is where, the information was important to share, because this is where the reservations were being developed and misunderstanding some of it, right? And I think the idea was that you could be better informed and, just understand better what the scientific study was about.
Thank you. We have two
But
more
thank you
comments.
so much for your
Miss-
time.
wait,
I
wait,
make a
miss-
motion to extend another 30 minutes.
Motion to extend and have 30 minutes?
Second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Just
Motion granted.
Very short, because I'm a little lost, and I like to understand all this. And I'm sorry if it's a dumb question, but I'm a very concerned citizen of Laredo. And I understand you are worried about the pollution and the air environment for the community. So, that being said, my concern on the pollution in Laredo will be Loop 20, McPherson, and probably Mines Road, which all the community, which all the kids and the parks are concentrated. So I would like to see those sensors first on those areas, which my kids, my cousin, my niece is playing and it's going to school, other than where the trucks are, because.
So those.
And I'm sorry, and, talking about, we are in compliance right now in that part. We don't know how we are in the other part. So I want to see that information first, because I'm already have this one, and I know I'm in compliance. And we're talking about in 2 years, there's gonna change the regulation. Yes, but in 2 years, we are also changing the World Trade, because we are going through environmental process, and we are going to an expansion. So that's not gonna be an issue. So, and we are in compliance, and probably we are gonna be in compliance too back in 2 years. But we don't know anything about McPherson, Loop 20, and Mines Road. So I would like to see those sensors over there where the community is, where kids are.
Yes.
So that will be a nice information.
So the Mines Road that you're talking about, there will be sensors placed on those neighborhoods. If this project is successful, then the logical next step you would put low-cost sensors in different areas of the city. And it's a project that the city could take on, because these are low-cost sensors. But first, we have to determine the validity of the low-cost sensors and also see what trend lines they show. So this is a pilot project. So while I understand, Mr. Larreal, and your concern with different areas of the city, the grant just isn't intended to cover that much area. It is not saying, though, that we cannot do that as a next step or in the future.
This, if I may, I'm sorry, but this particular grant is specific to the area in order for it to get funded, right? But it doesn't mean, right, but, and it doesn't necessarily have to be where the other sensor is, if I'm understanding, but again, it's based on that specific area. We cannot move it anywhere else. That's where this pilot program has to start. Are we comfortable with that or not at the end of the day? That's what the vote's gonna be. Do we allow for this for the future expansion of the others? Because it's either here or not.
Right. So I'm gonna move the vote. We've already spent over an hour on this, so.
And Mr. Lavette.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted, and Ms. Salinas, I agree 100%. We are applying for an EPA grant that's way bigger than this. We see this as a SEMIA grant. And the city is our statutory partner on that EPA grant. And that proposal is going to allow us, part of that proposal has an air component and will allow us to expand this. But it'll give us time to get established and get the pilot project underway, because I agree with you, we do need to just check other spots. How is everything distributed when you take wind factors, wind issues into account? But to your point, we're in agreement with you and thinking like you, to get started with this, it's a 12-month project, but then apply, and fingers crossed we could get that grant. You know, it's always a roll of the dice, but that other grant that we're applying for, with the city as our statutory partner, would just expand it to cover other parts of the city as well.
Right. So, I'm gonna move to vote.
So this is not to get a fee because we're polluting EPA fee or things like
No,
that?
it is just to make the measurement of that low-cost sensor as true as we can interpret, as Dr. Peltier can interpret it.
Understood. I'm gonna move the vote. There's gonna be a yes or a no. Yes is to recommend the, project to move to city council as with our recommendation, or not our recommendation. So, all in favor of accepting this project as our recommendation to city council, say aye.
Aye.
All of those that oppose? You have to raise your hands because I'm gonna need votes. The nays have it. Ms. Cortez, we really appreciate everything that you do, and city councilwoman as well for the push. But I hope you understand, you know, that,
What we might want to do is add to the amendment saying that the doctor's gonna put it in writing that it's not gonna be subject to the.
well, I think, well, that,
But if it's something to help expand, we're good. I mean,
right, no,
that's
no, no.
what it is.
So just to finalize, this is just us telling
Yeah.
city council
No,
what
understood.
we think.
Yeah.
They still have to go back and vote on it themselves, so
We're
that
gonna
doesn't
take
mean
our
that this is,
recommendations.
right, so, but neither here nor there. All I wanted to say was, thank you for your efforts. They're always, you know, the environment is always a concern for everybody. We just need to all come to a common ground to where it's, you know, everybody can agree.
And Mr. Loudon and members of the committee, we're very grateful for your time. This project is still going to move forward because we're gonna be using private residences, and we are going to co-locate as closely as we can to that EPA station because we have to for the science of it. I would request in your vote down for this project, if you can give just sort of the rationale as to why this committee is voting down this community air monitoring project for Laredo and Nuevo Laredo.
Yes, Ms. Limon, I'll have an email drawn up to you with all of our concerns that will be added onto there. I'll send you that, before, in the next 24 hours, because I think you need to put this on the agenda by Friday for the next city council meeting, if it's gonna be at the next city council meeting.
And the fact that we were not considered when the decision was made to put it at World Trade Bridge will be the number one item on that reasoning behind it.
And Mr. Maldonado,
Yeah.
again, the way Dr. Peltier said, that EPA TCEQ station, if it existed at Colombia or if it existed at Lake Casablanca, that's where it would have been co-located, because that's where it has to be co-located. It's not about picking on the World Trade Bridge because we wanted to. That's just where the one and only CAM station for Laredo exists. And so we have to co-locate it there as closely as we can. And so I just wanted to, again, reiterate that point that Dr. Peltier and Mr. Donaldson have made.
Yes, and I want to thank everybody that logged into the meeting also to, you know, you're helping communities around the country, and appreciate your time here on, I know that you've been here for a couple of hours already, and so have we, so thank you very much. I think that concludes that agenda item. On to the next one, which it's update and discussion by Garros representative regarding the repairs to the Columbia Solidarity Bridge refrigerated facility and any other matters thereinto. I move to table this until.
Motion to table.
Motion to table. They get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Next is update on the discussion regarding the road leading to the World Trade Bridge import lot from Riverbank and any other matters there, incident there too. Mr. Richard or Ms. Limon?
Good evening, committee members, Yvette Limon for the record. We did receive, an agreement from TxDOT. It has been forwarded to the engineering department to make sure that all the legal language that's on that agreement, that the city accepts to be able to move it forward.
I'm sorry, is everybody aware of what we're talking about?
Not really.
It is, have it,
So there is a, plot of land, so right now.
I'm aware of the lot of land.
Riverbank.
So
Riverbank.
in other words, right now, if we want to get to the import lot, we cannot cross through Loop 20 anymore because of the traffic. Everything being
fast lane
shifted,
traffic.
the fast lane traffic.
Right.
So we have to go around the export lot to get back all the way around and go
Okay.
back in.
I
So
get
there is a property right next to the casetas that is being proposed to, as an MOU, because I think it's TxDOT property, that we could use as a parking lot to be able to park there to access the import lot.
No parking lot.
The road, I'm sorry, the
It's
road
just
to get to the
we
parking lot.
Go through Riverbank and then up through
Yes,
that dirt area, parallel to Loop 20 by
To get
the
to the parking
exit
lot.
booths.
there we
To
go.
cut across the exit lanes and go into the parking
So
lot.
that part of land, it's
It's
TxDOT?
TxDOT.
Okay.
So the city has to look at the legality to make sure that it's safe, because
So-
they're going to be traveling in front of the exit booths to go into the parking lot.
Not that the
So-
city's gonna buy it, it's gonna be an
No.
MOU for where it's gonna be open to the public to be able to cross through that property to get to the existing parking lot next to the import lot.
I get it.
To come through Riverbank and go
Yeah.
up, rather than have to go all the way around.
Right.
So that's where we're at. I'll follow up with the city engineer, to make sure he's reviewed it, and then send it to the city manager's office, and if they're in agreement with what the MOU indicates, then we'll move forward.
Any questions? No? Alrighty, thank you. Next agenda item is discussion and possible action regarding the need for additional, sorry, I missed one, I skipped one. Discussion and possible action regarding changes of Port of Entry Advisory Committee bylaws and any other matters incident thereto. This agenda item came up recently with Mr. Gene Lindgren, moving from the Laredo EDC, LEDC to another project. That opened up and Mr. Lindgren, it's nothing to do with yourself, but as LEDC, as we see LEDC, we also see it as the Laredo Motor Carriers Association, like Alpha, like Luxpa, as an association that should not have an appointed position representing it, should have a designated person, which is the CEO, or an assigned personnel, just like every other association that's part of this committee. So it was brought up to me that we need to put this item on the agenda because we would like to change the bylaws to read that the president or somebody from the LEDC is the representative and not an appointee. Currently, that appointee is by the City of Laredo mayor, which it has nothing to do with what we're trying to do. We're trying to do with associations having heads of associations, not appointed associations. He has, right now as it reads, 3 appointees. Somebody from the banking industry, the LEDC appointee, and somebody up here on our board, which right now is Ms. Salinas. So the aspect of this is to make sure that somebody from the LEDC is not appointed, but always somebody from the LEDC will represent the LEDC. We went through legal, we went through city management. It is at the discretion of this committee to be able to make any changes to its bylaws as long as we vote them in ourselves.
You are correct. If I may,
Yes.
Chairman, read under the bylaws, section 2-251, which is duties and powers of the committee. Under item B, it says the Laredo Port of Entry Advisory Committee is hereby empowered to adopt rules and bylaws governing its own operation for the performance of its official duties and powers.
Okay.
So with consensus by the committee, then you can make changes to the bylaws. So my recommendation to the committee is to draft any and all changes that you want to make, to include appointments, to include adding additional, as Mr. Dominguez has indicated, to add the association of, at Columbia. So any and all, I can email you all the bylaws, review them, do your strike-throughs, make changes, corrections, and then we'll present the changes to council to be adopted.
So is there any actions that, I mean, don't we?
It doesn't, does it have to go through?
We don't, I mean, if we vote them in, that why do they have to be sent to city council for approval?
I'll check with legal. I know, I guess, maybe because it was a creation of the committee, but I'll verify with zone, and if we don't have to take it to council, then we make our changes,
So-
vote on it in a meeting,
Right.
and we'll enforce those.
I did the first one, which was to change from a 2-year to a 1 year for the chair. And we changed it, we voted, and everybody accepted it,
It will.
and we've been working like
Continue on.
So from legal zone himself, the ordinance that created your committee states that you are empowered to establish bylaws to govern yourself. So I think it's within our rights to be able to change or add or.
What's your motion?
Motion
Yes, sir. What is your motion?
to do the change, to do the change, I mean, doesn't mean that I
Okay.
agree, I don't agree, but it's just to have dialogue so that we can vote, yes or no.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'm sorry, I don't get.
I don't get the motion.
I don't
Motion to change the bylaws.
So the bylaws state right now that is an appointed position. What we want to change that to is that it has to be somebody from the LEDC, not anybody, because right now, Mr. Lindgren, it goes on to his next project.
We need to get somebody
That position can be filled by somebody else other than the LEDC at the mayor's discretion. It doesn't have anything to do with the LEDC. The motion is that the LEDC has always 100% one position there by its CEO or somebody that needs to fill in if he's not available, or he or she is not.
And that's what the motion is, to keep that.
The motion is to change it from an appointed position to an LEDC CEO, president, or person of the LEDC.
And if I could say a few words?
Yes, of course.
This came as a surprise to me, after I accepted the position at Talese, working for the Walker family. The mayor's office reached out to me and mentioned that they wanted me to continue to represent the region. And if I'd like to remind everybody that the mission of this port of entry includes the development of the city and its surroundings. And personally, y'all know that I look out for the best interest of our region, and I will continue to do so. The Walkers, the Legacies, the Municipal Management District, the Water Supply Corporation, Earl and Associates have 6 or 7 memberships at the LEDC. I'm still considered the ex-president and ex-CEO. I'm in an advisory role for the LEDC. Now, I was in contact with the mayor's office this morning, and I will be replaced on this committee with the new interim president, CEO. But I wanted to make sure that I got my point across. I don't want to take this personal. It's kind of hard to feel like somebody's causing trouble. And that hurts me because I look out for the best interests of the region, in fact, our sister cities as well. and I will continue to do so, and I will be going to Washington and DC and Mexico City for the Legislative Action Committee as part of the private sector. And I will look out for the best interest of my hometown, that's been my home for the last 30 years. It's been an honor to be here. You'll probably see me sitting back there every month and be a part of the discussions and be the eyes and ears and represent my employer and the region as well. So thank you for allowing me to get that off my chest.
That's good, and that's why I started off with the way I started off. It's nothing personal, it's all about the position from the LEDC, just to clarify that there's, you know, it shouldn't be an appointment, it should be an automatic president or vice president or somebody who's from the LEDC, not to replace Gene Lenderman. So, congratulations on your new position. I think we all wish you well, and, you know, we'll hopefully in the future, Talise, like Mr. Earl said, will be part of Laredo, and will be part of Port of Laredo, and will have a seat at this committee. Unfortunately, right now, it's not the case. But congratulations and good luck.
The bylaws indicates 2 voting members shall consist of the following mayoral appointees: 1 international banker, 1 representative from the Laredo Economic Development Corporation.
And that's what we're trying to
That's
change.
And I'm still part of the LEDC.
So he might still.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine, but, and as long as you're part of the LEDC, you're welcome at this table.
And I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce, which is probably another organization that should be considered.
That's
Have a
another,
seat.
that's another thing, but if you're gonna be the representative for LEDC for the next year, then you're welcome here. The only thing we need to change is the bylaws, that it's a representative of the LEDC. It's not, it shouldn't be an appointed position. And if you're here for 2 years, great, you're here for 2 years as a representative of the LEDC. As the representative of the LEDC, not an appointee, which we don't have a problem with that.
Sounds like a good cleanup.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right, so we have a motion.
So move.
Does everybody understand the motion now?
So the motion is to change the language from,
An appointed position to an LEDC representative,
Like
like a CEO, just like the rest of the associations.
And one thing to consider, Chairman, if you will, the LEDC has elected government officials on its board as well. And the process that's used you might want to consider the reverse process, and that is getting the official member of the LEDC from the LEDC board's resolution. That's what the chamber does.
President of the board of the LEDC.
You wanna change it to the way,
Well, right now
I'm
it's.
just throwing out an idea.
Yeah, right now,
So city council appoints 3 members of city government on the LEDC's board.
nobody selects 3 members of only the mayor.
No, I'm talking about the
LEDC.
LEDC board.
Oh, the LEDC board,
LEDC.
yes,
City council recommends those
different.
yearly.
okay.
The Chamber of Commerce has a process where the board of directors will recommend either the president or the chair or representative of the chamber on the LEDC. Something to consider is the opposite approach. Ask the LEDC what their board of directors want as their representative on the board of directors. Something to think about.
so you're motioning to change it to read, instead of it being a mayor appointee, to be part of the group that's under the president
Not part of the
of
group.
the organization,
The
like we have.
LEDC Association.
We
president.
have,
Yes.
4 of the voting members shall be composed of the president of the following organizations: 1 representative of the Laredo Licensed U.S. Customs Brokers Association, 1 representative of the Association of Logistics and Forwarding Agents, 1 representative of the Laredo Motor Carriers Association, and 1 representative of the Laredo Manufacturers Association.
And it should read one
One
representative of the
from the
Laredo
Laredo
Economics
Economic-
Corporation,
okay.
and 1 representative from the Colombia
That's the-
Association as well. So
If,
We had already
That's-
voted.
I know I'm gonna make controversial.
It's a discussion.
If we are gonna invite the Asociación de Colombia, are we gonna have a seat for the Asociación de Nuevo Laredo? Because there are separate entities.
They do have it right now, but they're non-voting members.
Okay.
So they're always
because I
welcome
have-
to the
okay.
meetings
I'm
to
the
provide.
representative on both.
Right.
I'm for both.
Yes, they
Oh,
have you
okay.
on
So
the,
you're coming for,
Yes.
Yeah,
for both?
but I just have them both.
yes, yes, because the others are non-voting members, so.
And are we asking for a representative of each association? Are we asking for the president or his appointee?
Well, right now it
Because
reads,
if we wanna
Right
be
now it's
strong and we wanna
It
keep
says
it
now it's
strong,
representative.
It says the
Originally,
president.
It's the president because
Uh-huh.
they rotate
so
automatically.
should we change the representative to a president?
I don't.
Because we wanna be strong. Because if I'm gonna send you whoever in my association, it's like, it's not the president, it's not the vice president,
But the
so.
LEDC is gonna send their strongest person to be in the advisory committee, I would think, that has knowledge of.
And the only reason that the banker is because they don't have an association. That's why the mayor.
That's an appointed position.
And we as LMCA, we changed our language. We are now the chairman of the board and the co-chairman of the board. We aligned ourselves to be the same as our state and national association counterparts. Only in Laredo, respectfully, do they use president and vice president for associations. At a state and a national level, we don't use it. So I am the chairman of the board. We don't have a president or CEO at LMCA. We have staff.
You're the highest.
At the office, but yes, so,
You are the highest.
so that is the equivalent in our understanding of what we have done internally.
And the bylaws also state that you can send a representative to attend. We can't.
Yeah, no, we
Right.
cannot.
Because you all are appointed by your respective council members.
Right, so if at some point, Chairman, you can't attend, you can always send your vice chair or
Right, yeah.
co-chair or whatever your linguistics are for your association.
So, motion to have you all send me, to keep track of all the changes and not miss anything. I would recommend that you all send me an email with your proposed changes so that they can be incorporated into the bylaws and then bring them back the next meeting
And vote on it.
and you all approve them.
Is that good?
What do you think?
So moved.
All right, so we have a motion to open up, so we opened it up. I guess we don't need a second when we close it, but we just,
Yeah,
You need a
Motion is second.
you did get a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so we will get something to you in writing so that at the next meeting, we can read how it's supposed to state
Right.
and vote.
Right.
So Gene, you can come to the next meeting.
Right.
You're still in.
I haven't
You're
missed
still
one.
in.
Maybe one I mean, to be here.
This next item is, one that has been on our agenda for a while. Discussion of possible action regarding the need for additional primary booths at World Trade Bridge and any other matters incident there too. I think it was something that Mr. Dominguez had brought up. I don't think it's been addressed or
Mr. Cavazos, you brought it.
or Mr. Cavazos?
Right, I think I brought it up on one of the meetings just briefly, but.
Because he was out of town.
But it was like 3 meetings.
No, he.
Yeah,
brought it
yeah,
up
yeah,
because
it
you
was,
were
it was
out
a
of
while
town.
ago, it was a while ago, yeah.
But I brought it up because you were out of town, so
Well,
I.
you say you
keep
can't
it
talk
going.
about it unless it's on the agenda, so here we are. So, commensurate with the bridge expansion, it only just makes sense to start looking at the current infrastructure within the import lots. Because otherwise, you're bringing more traffic into one area, so logically, and there have been discussions internally with,
No, I get it. I was just explaining to him. Yeah.
there have been discussions internally within CBP, and they have some ideas in terms of expanding the number of booths, or even repositioning some of those booths. But in addition to primary booths, they're also talking about an alternative exit gate, that runs alongside the periphery. They kind of explained it to me, I don't really have a visual picture of it, but it's kind of along the edge and would meet under that bridge that comes out of, right underneath that goes up that Midland Road, so.
I have a question. Whenever there's something like that coexists, I mean, obviously we need CBP's input, right?
Well,
They gave it to him.
CBP's idea.
They gave it to you in the meeting?
Right, they said that they wanted the city to get behind it because obviously, well, that means, funding, for the project and, or have a creative way to come up with payment of, who's gonna pay for that particular expansion, but we need to start. We need to start the dialogue, and it's gonna cost money to get it done, and, whether it's,
That's not
to
part of
say
the
this,
expansion.
bridge tolls or something like that, but whatever the idea is, we need to start thinking of, because it's current, I mean, infrastructure's been there since when did it get finished, 2000?
They built it.
2001?
Mr. Cavazos, Chairman, if I may, we have been a great partner with CBP and GSA. In the 22 years that I've been there at the bridge, the city has invested in the federal port facilities because the city leaders have seen the vision of moving forward and what's the traffic that's coming, right? So in 2011, the city of Laredo, along with GSA and TxDOT, funded the expansion of the primary stations. When World Trade Bridge was constructed and opened for business in April of 2000, they started with 8 primary lanes. We expanded it to 15. That also allowed to avoid bottlenecking inside the port facilities. They expanded the secondary area and they added the additional exit booth from 4 to 5, what they currently have today. We continue to work with CBP. We met with them several months back and they indicated not expanding the primary booths, but removing the bat cave and doing some other
We got to mention
improvements.
that you said the older.
I came back to the city. I sent all these projects in an email to the engineering department, who is the department responsible for developing the capital improvement program for the city of Laredo, which is a tool, it's a plan, so that city leaders can see the projects that are needed to be able to fund it or make decisions in the future. So they are in the CIP plan. They're identified as not funded. Right now, the city of Laredo is focusing on the expansion of World Trade. CBP just completed the installation of their technology, their multi-energy portals, and they're gonna be aligned with their primary stations and with the new bridge span that will be constructed in a couple of years. So we will continue to have meetings with CBP and document their needs. Now, should there be grant opportunities, then the city can move forward with those projects once they're approved through the capital improvement plan. That's how those projects work. The city cannot just say, okay, CBP, what do you need? Okay, you need a $5 million project? Here we go. No, it's a process. Whether it would need to go through the donation acceptance program again, like we did the fast lane, it's a process. But we continue to work with CBP. We understand the need. We want to remain competitive and be able to provide a service to our customers.
So do we need to do anything, or do we recommend for you to go ahead and look at that and try to source?
It's been
the different areas that have to come together in order to achieve the end.
Right now, the city is focusing on the expansion. Perhaps in later years, or if grant funding opportunities arise, then those projects can shift. It's a moving plan.
But can we at least start that conversation?
It has been.
Okay, so then we
The
don't.
email was sent to the city
Gotcha,
engineering
gotcha,
department.
okay.
I identified the projects that are in need, and they've incorporated into the plan.
So then there's already a
Correct,
process.
and obviously, as the Port Advisory Committee, I mean, how many of us knew about it before?
I reported it on a meeting previously, but sometimes I know your schedules are busy. Sometimes you're able to attend and sometimes you're not. But we will continue to work with CBP, as we have in the past. And as funding opportunities arise, we'll push these projects forward.
Yes, I think, Mr. Chairman, that's the whole point. It's for awareness for everybody. We are the Port Advisory Committee. It just, makes sense that we look at current infrastructure, that we remove some of the older inspection kind of technology, specifically the Bat Cave, that forces basically everything into 2 lanes after all the primary lanes. Maybe perhaps it's a technical guess.
So redesign it.
Yes. Redesigning it to make it flow better, to make it obviously more.
Francés, ok.
Solamente reforzar la importancia de invertir en el crecimiento de lo que es el puerto, o como le llamaríamos, el recinto de la aduana. Como transportista, en toda mi experiencia, nunca hemos tenido el cuello de botella en lo que es el puente. Hoy estamos expandiendo el puente, pero ahí nunca nos hemos atorado. Donde nos atoramos es cuando termina el puente. En los booths o en las casetas donde llegamos principalmente, pero en ocasiones también pasando las casetas, por ejemplo, en las casetas de salida. Y todo eso hace que se haga la fila muy larga. Pero igual no entiendo el espacio que comenta. ¿Qué es el back cave?
Es donde se suben los inspectores y pueden ver arriba de las
Ok.
cajas, ¿sabes? Como
Bien.
que forcen todo. Quieren, se preocupan por la seguridad de los oficiales. Tienen que estar, sobre todo en los veranos, con también
Sorry to interrupt, motion to add 15 minutes.
Motion.
Second.
First and second.
Pero sí, todo lo que ayude a que la operación al terminar lo que es el puente funcione mejor es de vital importancia, porque la expansión no nos va a dar muchos beneficios si no se agiliza toda la operación en la aduana.
And that's the reason that I'm bringing it up. That I think this committee should be aware and get behind the effort to look at,
To start
ergonomically,
What
how
would
we
be,
get
what would be
the flow better.
what would be the first steps, Ms. Limon, to bring it up to city council or to bring it up to city management, or how does that?
The first step was to put it on the capital improvement plan, and that's what we.
And it was there, but it's just not funded.
It's not funded.
So what are the next steps to get a
We go lobby.
CIP?
Go get
Fund-
money.
We either fund it through grant opportunities, as grant opportunities arise for ports of entry, that's where those funds can be utilized.
Or there's a DAP program right here, right?
Does it have a cost that already associated to it?
Yes, million? What was the amount for the removal of that area?
The Bat Cave?
Million?
Bat Cave? The removal of the Bat Cave?
Well, I was talking about the roofs.
Mr. Limon, just with that being said, looking at this, it says, this is more like for information, but I know that was written out where it says possible action. We already discussed everything that's already action been taken, so this is more than information than a motion necessary, right?
I don't think there's any motions that we need to make, we just need to see what the next steps are to be able to get something rolling, but
Everything's.
it's all right, if you don't have that number.
We have it, but we have.
But there's already, we're moving on, right? We just need
Yes.
to make it aware and to continue pushing if that's what's needed.
We can take action.
And that's a good maybe,
Yeah.
agree.
Well,
Only thing is just bringing awareness, right?
Yeah, okay.
It looks like 1,650,000.
and that was back in
No, a couple of months ago.
Oh, this is updated,
Yes, because we
2024.
met with CBP not too long ago.
And so we need to go out and look for. $1 million.
April or around there.
$1 million bucks, ¿ustedes los traen? Está en la bolsa.
So, I mean, we do, and, while we're on the kind of same topic of improvements and the capital improvement plan, last week we met with CBP, again, Albert Flores and his team, so that we could identify the needs at Columbia. We got ahead of the game somewhat at World Trade before the expansion came, but now we're working on the expansion at Columbia, so we need to look at the infrastructure at Columbia as well on the GSA side and the
One
port.
bridge at a time.
So we're looking at that as well. So we're not neglecting one or the other, we're looking at.
Our biggest concern is World Trade.
Right.
But I can give you the report of Mr. Flores, what he gave us about expansion of Columbia.
Oh, we already met with them, he already gave us the list and their needs and relocating the fast lane and a lot of other improvements
Well,
needed
I can
there.
put it in writing if you want to.
Oh,
I
well,
can put it in writing and I can tell you also
CIP.
the necessities of changing
Yeah.
the hours of operation of the Mexican side and everything that he told us that.
I think we've gone beyond what the scope of this
Yeah.
agenda item is, so,
So I motion that we add more booths.
so I guess the motion is to request city council to consider the funding of these booths for expansion, for less bottleneck for trade, to expand. Obviously in line with the expansion of the World Trade Bridge. So, all in favor?
Second?
Or second, sorry. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank
Just
you.
a brief, there's a legislation that's going out right now. I'll bring out more information on it, where they're trying to generate a land maintenance fee. It's equivalent to the harbor maintenance fee, where they step funding out for dredging, and this is strictly for infrastructure. I don't know if it'll pass or not, but it's up right now. I consider it's an election year, there's an opportunity, but once I get more information, I'll share it with the group so we can kind of hopefully support that and go behind it.
Thank
Because
you.
it'll get some funding for this as well.
Thank you. Item number 7, discussion of possible action regarding new bridge location somewhere between north of World Trade Bridge and south of the Columbia Solidarity Bridge. I know that we had brought this up prior to Mr. Dominguez and I's attendance at that city council meeting where it was brought up. And I just don't know that if it ever got to city council as a formal request. So what is it that you need from me or from us to make it a formal request to get the ball rolling on this? Because we've already touched base with this, on this subject before.
I guess what we would need is for mayor and council to provide the city manager with that
With that direction. All right, so,
that we can officially move forward and hiring a consultant or whoever the experts are to determine.
so we need to get an agenda item on the next city council, or a city council meeting so that we can request get the ball rolling, what we're looking for. All right. And there is no action that needs to be taken care of there, except, trying to lobby one of the city council members to put that as an agenda item. And the bridge staff report, which I think
It provided enough.
it's provided enough information that we can read on our own.
Yes, but, this past week, we had our consultants come in. We had very productive meetings all week. We started on Tuesday. We met in the morning with the representatives from Tamaulipas, Mauro Rocha and his consultant, to finalize the conceptual design plan for the World Trade Bridge expansion. They're moving forward with their project. We met with them. After that, SEA, our consultants, had a meeting with TxDOT, which kicked off the official World Trade Bridge expansion project with TxDOT. We had a great meeting with them. That was Tuesday. Wednesday, we met with they did a tour of all the TxDOT representatives so that they could understand what the project, consisted of. And then we had a meeting with the Faskins, because there are some pumps that are underneath, in the area where the expansion will be, or the bridge span will be constructed. So we met with the Faskins to determine where to relocate that equipment. And then on Thursday, we shifted and met with the representatives from Nuevo León, for the Columbia expansion.
Oh, okay.
To start looking at alignment and where their infrastructure is and how they're proposing to construct. Right now, as they have it, just on paper, it's not final.
From what I've seen, the governor of Nuevo León is very proactive.
Yes,
and wants to get that going.
they're on board.
Yeah.
They're proposing a 4-lane bridge span downstream and then a 4-lane bridge span upstream from the current bridge that we have at Columbia. But they're looking at the alignments. So there's nothing final. We will have other meetings, to get to where we are at World Trade right now.
Great. Before we adjourn or before we get anything, congratulations on the lowest U-turns that you had in the last 4 years. 189. And also, it's almost at $500,000 in total revenue.
Just a question, Chairman. I know, but I still see that you had one account that 11, so basically you had 37 accounts that still did multiple. Are you imposing new fees on there yet? The increment amount or no?
Correct. Chairman, members of the committee, Kent Richard. The new fees went in, if I'm not mistaken, June 25th. And I'll be happy to tell you that this top vote getter that had 11 U-turns, we have already got them to sign up on the replenish. We got a credit card on their account and everything.
Oh, nice.
It's great. It took us a few weeks working on them, but we finally got them in and.
Very good.
And we're continuing to work on other accounts as well.
Motion adjourned.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, guys.